deeply revered by humankind. The Sun Prince unexpectedly fell in love with a maiden offered as a sacrifice to him. So he secretly hid her away in the celestial palace, constantly kissing and hugging her, confessing his love, all because a prophecy had spread throughout the Bovia's empire. The Sun Prince would meet a human girl immune to fire. Together, they would conceive an omnipotent god. Thus, every year during the Sun Festival, young girls were taken as sacrifices and offered to the sun god's 3 sons. And because of this absurd prophecy, human female sacrifices were burned alive every year on the day of the festival. And Lixiana was one of this year's sacrifices. She had never imagined that she would be forcibly made to drink a potion by her half-sister Grazia, and then be sent off to die a decent death. After drinking the magic potion, Lixiana's vocal cords were damaged, leaving her unable to speak, and her whole body felt as if it were being scorched by blazing fire. Desperate and helpless, she could only watch as her golden long hair was dyed a gorgeous red. And this was exactly what her sister Grazia wanted, because with this red hair, they looked no different from each other. Watching her sister Grazia's departing figure, Lixiana pleaded blankly, but it was of no use at all. In the end, she was forcibly dragged away by the maids and became the Sun Prince's sacrifice in place of her vicious sister. Until the day of the Sun Festival, Lixiana, as the sacrifice, was brought onto the altar. Looking at everything before her, the fear of being swallowed by flames instantly surged into her heart, and tears fell like rain. The crowd clenched their fists in excitement, shouting loudly, eager to see the ritual begin. At this moment, her father, the high priest, stepped out amid the crowd's frenzied cheers. "I hereby offer my beloved eldest daughter Grazia to the son of the sun god." His voice was low and solemn. He shed fake, cheap tears. Seeing this scene, Lixiana had thought her father might feel even a trace of reluctance. She stared fixedly at the man on the stage, so she did not miss the utter coldness in his eyes, devoid of even a shred of emotion. And the man on the stage continued performing his fairness and selflessness, beginning the sacrificial ritual without the slightest hesitation. At this moment, Lixiana's heart turned completely to ashes. She desperately tried to shout with her stiff tongue, "I am Lixiana, not Grazia." But no miracle happened. Her throat, ruined by the potion, only produced a harsh scraping sound. Soon, flames suddenly blazed up, rushing over Lixiana's entire body, and from between the girl's parted lips came a silent scream, "Somebody, save me." Meanwhile, Orizio, the sun god's 3rd son, was sitting leisurely on a cold marble bed, slowly lifting his 4th cup of wine. But he was so annoyed by his servant Gino's anxious inner monologue that he lost all interest. "You've displeased me, Gino. Did you forget that I can read minds? Stop complaining." Hearing this, Gino immediately begged for mercy. "Please forgive me. The Sun Festival is about to begin. If you miss it again, His Majesty will definitely chop off my head. Don't worry, I can kill you before Father does. In fact, I'll let you die quickly and painlessly." At this, Gino's eyes instantly filled with tears. "I may be reborn, but it still hurts every single time." But Orizio never attended the Sun Festival because he simply hated this cruel method of sacrifice. Yet Gino, with tears in his eyes, shouted loudly, "Your Highness, if you refuse the sacrifice again, His Majesty will summon you, and I'll be thrown into the endless abyss. Is that what you want to see?" Hearing Gino's pitiful pleading, Orizio immediately lost all interest in wine tasting and stood up, saying, "If this truly is Father's will, then I accept this sacrifice. Just this once. Go tell Father that this is the first time, and also the last." As a breeze swept by, a radiance began to glow across Orizio's face. In a flash, he arrived at the altar, and hearing the love-struck voices of the human women around him, he regretfully thought that he should have waited until after the fire had ended to come. But seeing the girl surrounded by raging flames, the man still descended from the air involuntarily and walked to Lixiana's side. Staring straight at the girl's face with those eerie eyes, he said calmly, "Your name is Grazia, is it? There must be some sacred power in you, because you still haven't been burned to death. But unfortunately, I've never had any interest in accepting this kind of sacrifice." Hearing this, Lixiana tried with all her strength to say, "Bastard, I'm not Grazia," but still no sound came out. Seeing this, Orizio unusually took the girl back to the celestial palace. When Gino found out, he was nearly driven mad with anger and shouted, "Your Highness, how can you bring a human sacrifice to the celestial palace? What on earth are you thinking?" But Orizio did not care at all, and merely said calmly, "Save her. I need to confirm something." Hearing this, Gino could not understand at all. He was so anxious he was almost crying. "Why should I waste divine power saving an insignificant human? And you privately brought back a human sacrifice. This is a serious matter. You may even be put on trial." Hearing this, Orizio suddenly let out a cold laugh. "Put on trial? That is possible," Gino said weakly. Then he suddenly remembered that no one in this world dared judge Orizio, including Orizio's father, the the sun god's sole lumen, because Orizio was the only judge in the celestial palace. Gino immediately shut his mouth and briskly pulled open the bed curtains to examine the girl's injuries. But after only one glance, he cried out in shock, "I simply can't believe it. She's almost been burned to ashes." Then he stretched out his short, chubby fingers and began treating her. Soon, blue light began seeping into every corner of the girl's body. Heat began to escape from between the girl's tightly closed lips. As the treatment ended, the red color of Luciana's hair faded, instantly restoring her original appearance. Her pale golden long hair spread all over the bed. At this moment, Gino, who had expended a great amount of divine power, wiped his sweat and said, "She still needs some time before regaining consciousness. Please confirm what you want to know as soon as possible, and then dispose of her before her human scent fills the entire palace." But Orizio paid no attention to Gino's words and merely gazed thoughtfully at the blonde girl before him. What secret was hidden within her? Just moments ago, Orizio had brought the sacrificial girl who had nearly been burned to ashes back to the celestial palace. Looking at the girl before him who had returned to her original appearance, his mind reading failed for the first time. Just then, an unfamiliar presence appeared within the palace. Orizio's gaze instantly turned cold, sensing the man's unusual aura. Gino hurriedly erected a black curtain around the girl, hiding her away. Soon, an imperial envoy arrived and bowed to Orizio, saying, "I have brought the queen's gift. I heard this is your first time attending the Sun Festival, and she is very pleased." Orizio smiled faintly. "You mean a gift?" As soon as his words fell, the ground beneath the envoy's feet suddenly became scorching hot, and his whole body was instantly engulfed in blue flames. Enduring the burning pain, he panted and barely said, "I came under the queen's orders. You cannot treat me like this. This is tradition." Tradition? Orizio sneered. "The weather is very nice today. You wouldn't want a day to become your last day, would you?" And the envoy, no longer able to endure the pain, let out a scream at that moment. Everyone get out right now." After saying that, he lost consciousness and collapsed to the ground with a thud. The maid screamed and fled in disarray. At the side, Gino trembled in fear. "You really drove everyone out? The queen and the Pyro's family will never let you go. I only want to live a life free from interference by the royal family." "Of course," Gino fawned obsequiously. "But no matter what, now that you've attended the Sun Festival, you should also lose your virginity." Before he could finish speaking, there came an ow, and the chattering Gino was sent flying. Afterward, Orizio calmly instructed the maids, "Tell me when that girl wakes up." Meanwhile, Luciana was trapped in a nightmare she could not distinguish from reality. In the dream, she ran while begging, "Save me," yet she was still viciously grabbed by the hair by an evil hand. "How dare you run, you little rat!" An evil male voice rang out, dragging the struggling girl toward a corner, heedless of the eyes around him. No matter what, Luciana had to survive, and her mother's final words echoed in the girl's mind. Summoning her last breath of strength, the girl pushed the villain away with all her might. Just then, a commotion rose in the distance. "The divine maiden Grazia has arrived." Everyone rushed toward the divine maiden. It turned out that every year before the Sun Festival, the divine maiden would, out of pity, choose orphans, and if lucky, they might even be taken in by her. "Are these all the children you gathered?" When this clear voice sounded above Luciana's head, she stood up in despair and met the divine maiden's eyes. Revealing the wrist marked with a curse, she cried out loudly, "Honorable divine maiden Grazia, if you can hear my words, please save me from this hell." After that, Luciana was placed in a temple. There, she ate, slept, and washed. Those divine maidens who were displeased with Luciana began whispering in the ancient language, "I really don't understand why Grazia always brings these abandoned children to the temple. They look dirty and lowly." "That's because you don't understand. Grazia needs to do more good deeds before the Sun Festival altar, because the sun god blesses kind people." The divine maidens whispered among themselves, thinking these abandoned children could not understand the ancient language. But Luciana understood it, because her mother knew the ancient language. While combing her hair, the girl thought sadly, "I feel sorry for divine maiden Grazia's greatness. She will soon offer herself to the sun god to protect us. She had once saved me with such kindness." She, who guarded the sacred flame from ever being extinguished, was the first divine maiden of the Aratigo Empire and could even create fire through divine power. On this day, Luciana prayed devoutly as usual. "O omnipotent sun god, thank you for allowing me to live a peaceful life." As she gazed at the brilliant sunlight, a divine maiden entered her room. "I have come to take you to see the honorable high priest Eunuchus, but before that, your hair color needs to be changed." Very soon, the bewildered Luciana was dressed up by the divine maidens. As they walked along the road to the high priest's palace, she looked at her reflection on the smooth ground, and a ridiculous thought suddenly appeared in her mind. "I actually look a little like Grazia." At this thought, Luciana's cheeks instantly flushed, and she lowered her head. "How could I think that?" Suddenly, a shrill voice rang out. "Honorable High Priest Eunuchus, divine maiden Grazia has come to pay her respects." Lixiana's pupils trembled violently, and the veil on her head was instantly lifted. Eunuchus, having just finished the ritual, was washing his hands with clean water. Grazia, why have you suddenly come at this hour? Hearing the high priest call her Grazia, Lixiana began trembling all over, and a huge unease rose within her small body. Another Grazia appeared. I'm here. Eunuchus was suddenly shocked. Then she really isn't you? Hearing this, Grazia laughed even louder. Well, isn't this perfect? I've been looking everywhere for this little thing. Eunuchus looked utterly confused. What do you mean by this? Grazia roughly lifted Lixiana's wrist and said, Look, father, just as my mother said, the mark of the Mandos family, along with these cursed words, are branded on her body. Only then did Eunuchus understand. You know this was a mistake. Eunuchus denied it flatly, but strangely, scalding tears slid from the corners of his eyes. At this moment, Grazia's gentle voice rang out once more. What do you think? Can't you see any resemblance between us? I heard your mother was a direct divine maiden of the sun god. They say she had pale golden long hair and was born with a kind of charm that could fascinate every man in the country, right? Enough. Stop bothering me with this kind of thing. Your life is also hanging by a thread now, Eunuchus said viciously in the ancient language. But Grazia was not flustered in the slightest and softly replied in the ancient language. But tomorrow she'll go to the sun festival in my place. At Grazia's words, Lixiana felt as if her heart had skipped a beat. The altar? As far as I know, that is where they offer human sacrifices to the sun god. At this thought, Lixiana burst into tears and grabbed Grazia's sleeve. Please spare me. I am willing to do anything, divine maiden. I don't want to die. Hearing this, Grazia was slightly startled. Looking at the desperately crying Lixiana, she said coldly, So, you can understand the ancient language? You're very clever. But don't forget your status. You were born to die in my place. Orizio looked at Lixiana, who was still crying in her sleep, and for some reason his heart ached. Then he forcefully grasped her wrist, pulled her into his arms, and carefully studied the girl's delicate little face, unable to help sighing. She is clearly only a human, yet she has a head of pale golden long hair so perfectly suited to her. At this moment, Lixiana was still immersed in her nightmare. The fear of being devoured by flames, along with the force on her hand, made her mistakenly think that her hand was burning. The girl instantly opened her eyes, but the dazzling light made her vision unable to focus, and she only saw a blurred face. Who are you? Orizio was slightly stunned. Hearing the girl's cracked and hoarse voice, he used divine power to summon a golden cup and slowly fed the holy water in the cup to the girl's lips, as though watering a withered flower. But Lixiana instantly panicked. At that moment, she remembered how the divine maidens had once brutally forced a magic potion down her throat, damaging her vocal cords and leaving her unable to speak. She did not want to be treated so horribly again. So the girl tightly shut her lips and clenched her teeth, knocking over the holy water in one motion. Seeing this, Orizio suddenly lifted the girl onto the bed. You must drink it, or the sunlight will dry you out until you die. No, I won't drink it. But Orizio turned a deaf ear to the girl's words and once again used divine power to summon a second cup of holy water. Then, like pinning down a small prey animal, he firmly pressed her back and brought the cup to the girl's lips, but she still refused to open her mouth and only struggled frantically. Once again, she knocked over the holy water. Looking at this girl who kept sobbing just to refuse the holy water, and at his own body now soaked by the spilled holy water, Orizio suddenly let out a soft laugh. You're interesting, but you're already starting to trouble me. Don't resist your good fortune. After saying that, he directly took the holy water into his own mouth, firmly held the girl's small chin, and bent down to kiss her. In an instant, a subtle sensation spread across Lixiana's lips. After an unknown amount of time, only when her whole body had gone stiff did Orizio finally finish feeding her the holy water. At this moment, Lixiana's vision suddenly became clear. Looking at the incomparably handsome man before her, the girl widened her eyes in disbelief, her face flushing red in an instant, and subconsciously asked, Who are you? Hearing this, Orizio revealed an especially warm smile. You didn't recognize me. That truly disappoints me, human woman. Lixiana looked at his dazzling smile, frowned, and appeared utterly confused. Seeing this, Orizio immediately lowered his voice and reminded her, I am that bastard you were looking for. As soon as he said this, the girl's heart gave a violent jump, remembering the day of the fire sacrifice, the man she had seen before death. All color instantly drained from her little face, but she quickly came back to herself and asked in a trembling voice, Wait, does this mean I'm still alive? Orizio stared intently at the girl before him and answered, I cannot say that you are still alive, but neither are you dead. At these words, Lixiana's whole body stiffened. She knew that anyone who cursed the sun god would be punished for 3 generations. Although she would probably never live long enough to have grandchildren, the thought that she might fall into hell again instantly made her pull herself together. She suddenly bent down, knocking her forehead against the floor again and again with loud thuds. Sun god, please forgive my sins. Please have mercy on this pitiful soul. Please bless me with your love and save me from eternal hell." "Enough, enough," Orizio said irritably. Heaven knew that what he hated most was seeing other people's tearful faces, yet when it came to Luciana, he could not bring himself to feel disgusted at all. The man picked her up in one motion, and the girl was so startled that she stopped crying immediately. Only after being placed on the bed did she realize she had touched his strong body. She was instantly scared out of her wits, her whole body stiff, lying straight on the bed, and then she fainted on the spot. Orizio simply could not believe that she had actually fainted just like that. Why was she so weak? "We are descendants of the sun, looking down on humans and ruling humans, making them worship us. Human life is short and insignificant. Yet, this human woman was the first person who dared meet my eyes directly. Not only that, I cannot read her thoughts. To kill her now would be too much of a waste." So he then instructed the maids, "Keep a close watch on her. She may make another scene." Then, still somewhat uneasy, he added, "You must treat her with respect." Early the next morning, a groundhog-like scream rang through the celestial palace. "Oh heavens, I must be dreaming. It has to be." Gino's eyes locked onto the quietly lying girl, and he hopped about anxiously. Why is the human sacrifice still alive? Standing to one side, Orizio stroked the Black Panther's head and said coldly, "Remember my words. I intend to let her live." "What? Why would you do that? What if someone smells her scent? Are you doing this just to anger your father?" But Orizio only held his pet's head and smiled lightly. "What do you mean why? Isn't this exactly what you wanted? Didn't you want me to lose my first time?" Hearing this, Gino looked utterly bewildered and cautiously said, "Do you really want to sleep with that human sacrifice?" "That's right," the man answered casually, making Gino's fur instantly stand on end. Seeing this, Orizio revealed a mischievous smile of successful trickery. "I'm joking." Hearing this, Gino trembled with rage and shouted, "You really scared me just now. When are you going to get rid of her? Don't tell me you want to keep her as a pet. We cannot let her live. Even if His Majesty permits it, the Queen will never let you go. If the Queen sends another envoy, that human will be doomed. We must kill her before that happens." But Orizio said indifferently, "Perhaps you're right." "Of course. So let's go end her life right now." Gino instantly let out a sigh of relief. It seemed His Highness had finally come to his senses. But the next second, Orizio said with a brilliant smile, "I'm going to sleep right away with her." Hearing this, Gino turned to stone on the spot, and at this moment, Orizio was thinking that he would give his first time to this human girl. When the elf Gino learned this, he was almost driven mad with anger. "What are you saying?" "I'll just pretend I didn't hear it. Not a single word." Hearing that, Orizio said in amusement, "Your arrogance is truly astonishing. Do you want me to erase the expression from your face, just as I do to others?" Gino was so frightened that he burst into tears. "Woo, you're too cruel." But Orizio did not care in the slightest. "As long as you keep your mouth shut, no one will know." Poor Gino still refused to give up and weakly tried to persuade him. "Your Highness, how long do you intend to hide that human girl? You should know that your circumstances are very different from those of your brothers." It turned out that Orizio's mother was only a mortal. Therefore, as a demigod, he had black hair and black eyes. And since ancient times, demigods have never truly been acknowledged as gods. Even if the highest deity recognized them, there had never been an exception. Almost all demigods, in the end, would be assassinated or poisoned in the name of divine punishment. But Orizio not only survived, he also ruled the entire heavenly realm as a prince, because he had inherited not only his father's golden glory, but had also been born with mind-reading powers. Therefore, none of the gods were willing to move against him, including the omnipotent sun god Sol. Thinking of his complicated background, the smile on Orizio's face instantly disappeared, and he said calmly, "Doesn't everyone in my family want me to lose my virginity? But we never expected your partner would be a human woman. If that happens, you may be stripped of your title." Gino shouted loudly, but Orizio still did not care at all. "So what?" Hearing this, Gino immediately slapped his own head repeatedly with loud smacks, and his tiny elf head seemed to swell 3 sizes. In the divine realm, after all, after the prince came of age, he had to marry a member of the royal family or a high-ranking fairy and consummate the marriage. That was the rule everyone took for granted. Those who truly supported the queen and the royal family drew up a list of potential brides, trying to bring His Highness Orizio completely under their control. But His Highness Orizio wanted to give up his right to the throne, and his method was actually to give his first time to a mortal. At this thought, Gino suddenly had a flash of inspiration. Wait, even if His Highness Orizio slept with a human woman, he would still be the sole judge. That meant that even Sol, the sun god, could not strip him of his title. At that moment, Gino's mind began racing wildly. So he spoke thoughtfully. "Even so, it still doesn't feel quite right for you to give your first night to a human woman." Orizio let out a silent sigh. "As long as it makes them stay farther away from me, I'll be very happy. But, Your Highness, you may be completely banished from heaven." Hearing this, Orizio calmly poured himself a glass of wine, leisurely raised the glass, and smiled as brightly as sunlight. That's exactly what I want." Not long after, Lixiana slowly opened her eyes. Still groggy from waking, she drowsily thought, I can smell the warmth of the sun. Is all of this a dream? Or has the sun god taken pity on me and sent me to heaven? The girl suddenly froze, because she realized that her hands were actually tied up. Just then, a pleasant voice rang out. You said you're not Grazia. So, what is your name? The girl stared blankly at the handsome man above her and answered instinctively. Seeing this, Orizio could not help curling his lips into a smile. You may call me Orizio. The girl was instantly so dazzled by the beauty before her that her heartbeat quickened and her heart fluttered wildly. But she quickly came back to her senses, and fear instantly swept through her body. Please don't kill me. Please untie me. Of course, as long as you promise you won't faint again. With a crisp sound, the ropes binding the girl's hands loosened on their own. Lixiana was slightly startled and suddenly sat up from the bed. Then she quickly turned around, knelt on the bed, and devoutly bowed to Orizio. But the man reached out and lifted the girl's chin, and with a smile as warm as sunshine, said softly, You may raise your head and look. But the girl, blushing, hurriedly averted her gaze. Orizio found it somewhat amusing and spoke again. I told you to raise your head and look. That voice seemed to carry a kind of magic, making Lixiana obediently lift her head without meaning to. Orizio was extremely satisfied, and the smile on his face grew even brighter. What a good girl. The two were destined to meet. And as she gazed at the god before her with a smile as brilliant as sunlight, the girl had only one thought left in her heart at that moment. He was beautiful enough to intoxicate anyone. I want you to live. Orizio's gentle voice sounded again, interrupting the girl's thoughts. For a moment, she could hardly believe it and softly asked, Are you really going to forgive me? I can even grant you eternal life, but you must spend the night on my bed. Hearing this, Lixiana was instantly horrified and asked in a trembling voice one night, On the bed? What if I don't want eternal life? You're very brave, but do you dare refuse? The girl froze in place all at once, unable to make a sound for a long while. Orizio rose from the bed. Rest for a while and take good care of your body. You're weaker than a mouse. Even after Orizio left, Lixiana still had not recovered from the shock of what had just happened. At this moment, her mother's words of warning surfaced in her mind. Men are no different from animals. You must protect your chastity at all costs. At this thought, tears began slipping uncontrollably from the girl's eyes. He is a god, but in the end, he is also a man. Although what he said sounds wonderful, if I cannot please him, perhaps he will turn me into stone or wood. Mother, what should I do? Just as Lixiana was secretly grieving, a strong floral fragrance interrupted her thoughts. Suddenly, a drop of water fell onto the marble floor. Then, out of thin air, a strange green-haired girl appeared. Lixiana was instantly frightened out of her wits. A scream like that of a groundhog once again rang through the heavenly palace. So the green-haired girl hurriedly waved her hands and introduced herself. Hello, I'm Nicole, a low-ranking daffodil fairy. His Highness sent me to take care of you. I'm terribly sorry I frightened you. Lady Lixiana, I brought you some water. But Lixiana refused all food and only sat silently on the bed with her knees hugged to her chest. The simple-minded Nicole could not understand at all why Milady was so sad, and secretly thought, being able to serve the prince's first partner is my greatest honor. But there is one fundamental problem. Mortals cannot live long in the heavenly palace. Their fragile bodies cannot withstand the essence of the sun and are destined to wither away. I explained that she has to eat in order to stay alive. Yet Milady still refused all food. Looking at the silent Lixiana, Nicole was so anxious she was almost in tears and pitifully said, Lady Lixiana, please, I was ordered to make you drink this cup of holy water. It contains the essence of His Highness Orizio, the Sun Prince. Hearing this, Lixiana took the cup and stared blankly ahead, but for a long time made no move to do anything further. Nicole truly could not understand why Milady simply refused to drink it. You should know, this cup of holy water containing His Highness Orizio's essence is one of the most luxurious treasures in the realm of Goddess Tesca. One cup alone would be enough for the dowries of all 19 of my siblings. Suddenly, a voice sounded, interrupting Nicole's thoughts. If I drink this, what will happen? Nicole quickly answered, You will become healthy and beautiful, like a goddess of Bovias. Lixiana sniffled and said with a serious expression, If you want, you can drink this. Nicole instantly panicked. I would never dare covet anything His Highness has bestowed upon you. Seeing Nicole's eager avoidance, Lixiana resigned herself and poured the holy water into her mouth. Seeing this, Nicole seized the chance to ask, Then from tomorrow onward, will you eat? Lixiana shook her head frantically in refusal. Nicole was almost in tears and weakly asked then, Water? Will you still keep drinking water? Hearing Nicole's nearly pleading voice, Lixiana slowly nodded. Seeing this, Nicole immediately brightened up and said with a smile, I nearly forgot. You can now lie on the bed with His Highness Orizio. Then she used divine power to fill Lixiana's hair with orange blossoms, leaving Lixiana utterly bewildered. Nicole, however, explained excitedly, because the ladies in heaven wear orange blossoms in their hair when they are preparing to welcome their wedding night. Lixiana, who was drinking her second cup of water, instantly spat it out in one spray. Orizio sat upon the throne in the great hall, judging sinful beings as usual. The servants, meanwhile, handled the bloody scene in an orderly manner. The elf Nicole came to make a report. Looking at the scene before her, she said, trembling, "Today, Lady Luciana drank water." At this, Orizio's gaze turned cold. "If you came only to tell me that she merely drank water, then disappear from my sight at once." Nicole was so frightened that she instantly reverted to her original form and fled swiftly. It seemed this human girl had completely aroused His Highness Orizio's interest. She refused food and relied only on holy water to sustain her life. If not for my healing ability, she would probably already be dead by now, Gino thought weakly while hiding behind a giant stone pillar. Hearing his thoughts, Orizio coldly said, "I know you are hiding there. If you want to live, come out." Gino hurriedly jumped out from behind the stone pillar. "I was just passing by." Hearing this, Orizio stood up and his tone grew even colder. "I think I'll punish you first, and then listen to your explanation of why you happen to be passing by here." Hearing this, Gino was so frightened that he almost reverted to his original form, but he still summoned his courage and softly asked the man who had already walked up to him, "Do you really intend to let that human woman live?" Orizio did not answer, only let out a silent sigh. "Here it comes again." Then he slowly poured himself a glass of wine. Seeing this, Gino continued, "I do not think it is a good idea to let a mortal drink holy water containing your essence. I earnestly beg you to reconsider." Orizio, who had been lowering his head and staring at the wine in the cup, suddenly lifted his eyes and glanced at Gino. Their eyes met in an instant, and Gino immediately let out a miserable scream. He quickly raised a hand to cover his eyes. "I feel like my soul is about to disappear. Do you really want me to die?" Looking at the sniveling Gino, Orizio turned his head away in refreshed satisfaction. He leisurely took a sip of wine and spoke. "That human girl can meet my gaze." A certain elf with missing eyeballs instinctively replied, "Whether she can meet your eyes or not is not important. We need to get rid of her first." Gino suddenly reacted. "Did you just say that she looked into your eyes? And her soul remained completely intact?" Orizio said with great interest, "That is why I want her to live, even if I must force her to eat. Don't you think that is interesting?" Suddenly, the man's gaze turned icy, and light began to glow from his face. The next second, he vanished instantly. Gino stared blankly at the wine glass that had fallen to the ground, having no idea what had happened. But not long before this, Luciana had resolutely leaped down from the heavenly palace. She had been prepared to exchange her life for freedom. Orizio, who had been closely watching her all along, noticed instantly. He arrived in time and caught her steadily. At this moment, Orizio was truly enraged. He let out a cold laugh and said lightly, "What I want to tell you is this. Even if your body is smashed to pieces in the fall, I can still bring you back to life." After saying that, he took the girl back to the heavenly palace and placed her on the bed. Then he picked up a slice of fruit from beside the bed and held it out before the girl, speaking cruel words in a gentle tone. "Revival is a rather painful process. Please remember that." Hearing this, Luciana took the fruit with trembling little hands. Overwhelming fear instantly swept through her body. "I cannot even die if I want to. I can no longer make choices for myself." Looking at the trembling girl, Orizio felt that she had not truly realized her mistake yet, and continued, "I know that when this happened, that daffodil elf was not there." As he said this, Orizio paused. He raised his hand and gently brushed the air. In the next second, the girl's pupils trembled slightly as a scene of someone's severed head and body flashed before her eyes. Only at this moment did she understand that the god before her possessed such cruel methods. And yet, he could still say to her with a brilliant smile, "Now tell me, why won't you eat the fruit? If you do not eat, your daffodil elf will meet the same fate." From that day on, the girl came under even stricter watch. Every day, Nicole would place food in front of her, and for Nicole's sake, Luciana could only force the food down her own throat. Though she was being forced, the heavenly food she consumed did indeed have an effect, and Luciana seemed to gradually recover her health. Orizio would also often come to see the girl suddenly, without any warning at all, and every single time, Nicole would be so frightened that she would revert to her original form and vanish instantly. Luciana endured Orizio's merciless smile while exchanging pleasantries with him until it was time to sleep. Orizio seemed very satisfied with this plain yet quiet interaction. For 2 centuries, he had avoided contact with others in any form because of his cursed blessing. The souls of those who met his gaze would wither away. But Luciana was different. Her soul remained perfectly intact, and on top of that, he could not read her thoughts. Orizio was finally able to enjoy a moment of peace in another person's company. He allowed her to shed a few tears. If she tried to jump again, he knew he would bring her back to life again and again. He had even once considered granting her immortality. However, there was one problem. She lacked endurance. At this thought, Orizio let out a soft sigh. "You should go to sleep." But the girl, who obediently lay down, pressed her lips together in grievance. Forcing herself to close her eyes, she repeatedly warned herself in her heart, "I have to sleep. Even if I don't want to, I'm really so curious." Suddenly, the girl quietly opened her eyes. "Why does the Sun Prince insist on keeping me alive?" Drowsy Luciana thought it over and over, yet still could not fall asleep. She suddenly sat up And sure enough, after idling all day and then trying to sleep, it was simply too unbearable. Just then, Nicole walked in. Seeing that Lixiana was already up, she smiled and said, "You're awake? His Highness has gone out hunting. Shall I help you bathe? Or would you like to eat something first? Today's figs are sweet and fresh." Orizio had begun to become obsessed with prolonging Lixiana's sleeping hours. He said this was the only way for her to survive in the Heavenly Palace, but it also left Lixiana in a constant daze, and only holy water could clear her mind from that haze. "I feel a little dizzy. Excuse me, Nicole. Is there anything I can help with?" Hearing this, Nicole asked blankly, "Do you feel bored? Then would you like to dance with me? Or would you like to sing? I want to work. I don't care what kind of work it is, cleaning, wiping, preparing fruit. I'm willing to do anything. I have to do something. If I don't." At this point, the girl stopped and continued in her heart, "I will go mad." Hearing this, Nicole explained, "Ladies of royal blood do not work, but I do not have royal blood." Nicole looked utterly puzzled, "But as His Highness's partner, you are practically like an empress." Before she could finish speaking, Nicole suddenly let out a scream, so badly frightened that she instantly turned into water droplets and disappeared before Lixiana's eyes. Orizio had appeared at the doorway of the room. As always, he wore a radiant smile. "You're awake." Hearing this, the girl gave an awkward smile. "He seems to really enjoy watching my reactions." Seeing this, Orizio walked over. In a gentle voice, he asked, "Do you have something on your mind?" "Nothing at all." "Is that so? I dislike liars." The girl hesitated for a moment, but in the end still said, "Actually, I want to know if there is any kind of work I can do." Orizio was somewhat stunned and did not understand the girl's thinking for a moment, so he asked, "Work? You want me to find something for you to do?" "My hands are very skillful. If you give me papyrus, I can weave a sturdy basket or a box." Hearing this, Orizio only found the girl unbearably adorable and could not resist reaching out with that restless hand to rub the top of her head. He laughed softly under his breath. "Papyrus? How interesting." Then he lifted the girl's chin and stared intently into her eyes as he slowly said, "But Lixiana, you do not need papyrus, and you do not need to do any work. I will always provide you with everything you need, so the only thing you need to do is stay where you are. That is your work." Looking at the domineering man before her, Lixiana thought silently in her heart, "He stares at me so obsessively with that gaze, yet reveals a sorrow and cruelty that are hard to describe. You only need to sit obediently and wait for me. That is the only thing you need to do. You are mine, and I am the reason for your existence. He can do whatever he wants, so why does he seem so unhappy?" Gino, hiding by the palace entrance, could not understand at all. Gino noticed Nicole in the distance rummaging through a pile of papyrus, so he shouted loudly, "Hey, how is that human woman doing?" Nicole broke out in a cold sweat from the sudden voice. "You startled me. Are you talking about Lady Lixiana?" Looking at Gino walking toward her step by step, Nicole stood up and said hesitantly, "She is well. Who would have thought that a mortal could remain safe and sound in the Heavenly Palace?" At this moment, Nicole's thoughts were in a mess, and she weakly said, "Maybe she is not doing that well after all." Hearing this, Gino looked shocked. "She actually deigned to say something like that to you? What exactly is making her so unhappy?" Nicole answered timidly, "It's like this." But before she could finish, Orizio interrupted, "You must be Nicole." Nicole instantly broke into a cold sweat. She stiffly turned her head and cried out. At the side, Gino also spoke with a trembling voice, I almost had a heart attack." But Orizio's eyes darkened, and he looked coldly at Nicole. "So insolent. It seems you do not cherish your life." Nicole trembled all over in fear. "I don't know what you mean." Resting his chin on his hand with interest, Orizio said, "You dared to appear before me after taking linum, using it to stop yourself from thinking about Lixiana. That is truly outrageous." As it turned out, linum was a mental shield made from sulfur, aged gold, and ancient magic. It allowed the user to temporarily block Orizio's prying into their thoughts, and their souls would also briefly draw away from Orizio's dark gaze because of it. Hearing this, tears of fear streamed down Nicole's face as she tremblingly explained, "I had no choice. I was only worried that your highness would be troubled because of Lady Lixiana."
"How dare you say such a thing?"
Hearing the man's abnormally icy words, the two elves present were instantly horrified. And at this moment, Orizio was thinking, should I kill her? If that human girl discovers the daffodil elf is dead, she will surely faint again. I finally understand why I have been so irritable these past few days. At this thought, Orizio suddenly raised his hand, and a cluster of blue flames ignited in his palm. Nicole stared blankly at the dark blue flame before her. In an instant, as if she had lost her soul, she opened her mouth with vacant eyes and muttered softly, Nicole, I feel very sorry for Lady Lixiana. I worry that she may jump from the balcony at any moment. My heart aches for Lady Lixiana. She is forced to eat food, and sometimes she vomits everything back up. She does not even dare risk stepping out of the palace, because your highness has sealed all the entrances. I want to help her too, but Lord Gino warned me. If I anger your highness, he will burn down my home. Lady Lixiana is not happy. She is terrified of the third prince, yet still forces herself to smile. Nicole, As she spoke, her body fell backward. With a thud, she dropped into the pile of papyrus. Looking at the ill-tempered man before him, Gino asked timidly, "Was this the reason for that thunderstorm last month? Did that human girl make you angry?" I merely happened to instruct Gino to erase that daffodil elf's memory and bring me some more papyrus. Hearing this, Gino shot Orizio a quick glance and asked in confusion, "Your Highness, do you still want more papyrus?" "Yes, enough to fill her entire room." "What exactly is this obsession of yours with this human girl? Your family has been asking around the whole time whether you have lost your virginity, and I'm caught in the middle now. In that case, why don't you go to the royal palace tomorrow? Please tell me what reason I should use for the visit. Go show them evidence that I have finally brought someone into my bed." Lixiana sat on the balcony, looking up at the brilliant sunlight she longed for. Behind her stood the maid responsible for watching her, while she reflected quietly. Perhaps one day, in the end, I too will live like them, like a walking corpse. All my life, I have been fighting hunger. In the past, all I wanted was a mouthful of water. Yet I would lose consciousness from thirst and could only survive by barely relying on the grass on the ground. But strangely enough, now everything is different. I have a soft, comfortable bed to lie on. Delicious food and drink are also within arm's reach. But why am I still searching for a reason to live? Heavens, I do not want to merely stay alive. I want freedom. Something a slave should never dare hope for. When I was little, you gave me false hope, and because of that I even resented you. One day you will be free. Even after I die, I will pray for you. May you live the life I could not finish, like the only light in the darkness. A lively voice interrupted Lixiana's thoughts. "Look at this. Guess what Nicole brought you?" Nicole hugged a huge bundle of papyrus, her eyes full of anticipation that seemed to say, "Praise me quickly." But Lixiana did not show the happiness Nicole had expected and only said with a worried face, "But Nicole, if His Highness finds out that you brought me papyrus, you will. She has my permission." Hearing Orizio's voice, Lixiana immediately turned to look. Her little face showed surprise, and she parted her lips. But no sound came out. She only stared blankly into the man's eyes. Standing in the sunlight, Orizio smiled brilliantly and dazzlingly. "You wanted this, the seemingly cold and heartless sun prince. But in private, he was hopelessly love-struck and had no principles when it came to love. As long as the girl he loved was unhappy, he would compromise immediately. Even though he had said that papyrus was completely useless, he still had piles of papyrus delivered in front of the girl. Seeing this, Lixiana was utterly confused. "Why are you bringing me so much papyrus?" Before she could even ask, Orizio could no longer hold back. "What do you think?" Looking at the man's usual radiant smile, the girl looked bewildered and even thought this was work Orizio had arranged for her. So she immediately thanked him, but got no response. Then she secretly glanced at the man. She saw Orizio frown slightly, seeming somewhat dissatisfied. The girl was so frightened that her eyes grew hot, and she thought in panic, "Should I say something else too?" Seeing this, Orizio decisively reached out with that dangerous big hand and gently cupped the girl's face. Carefully wiping away her tears for her, he said, "When expressing gratitude, you should smile." But when Lixiana heard this, she cried even more heartbreakingly. At that moment, even the all-powerful Sun Prince was at a loss and could only helplessly move his hand away from the girl's face. He spoke coldly, "You said you wanted to live." Hearing this, Lixiana was instantly startled and said tremblingly, "Could you say that again?" I want to live." Orizio tilted his head playfully and said in feigned confusion, "How strange. Those who want to live usually beg me to spare their lives." With a thud, Lixiana was already trembling as she knelt on the ground. Shivering, she bowed her head and said, "I beg you, please end my life completely." Seeing the girl's unexpected reaction, Orizio was so angry he laughed. "Do you want to die that badly?" He suddenly grabbed the girl's shoulders and threw her into the pile of papyrus. Under Lixiana's shocked gaze, "Just as I told you before, I value etiquette very much. After all, I am the Radiant Sun Prince." This time the girl was completely panicked. She hurriedly said, "I know you are kinder than you appear. You are gentle and kind." Hearing this, the man let out a low laugh. "If you beg me to kill you again, I will make you my woman right here at once. For a woman like you, that would probably be more painful than death. Of course, you can also beg me to spare your life. If you do, during the time I possess you, I will do everything I can to keep you alive. That way, you can be my woman forever. I can tell that thoughts are turning in your head. If you truly wanted only death, you would not be silently thinking." With that, Orizio domineeringly lifted her chin, slowly moving closer to her soft red lips. Only then did Orizio reluctantly pull away. Looking at the girl with her flushed little face and disordered breathing, he said with some amusement, "It was only a kiss, and you're already this exhausted?" But Lixiana said nothing, only feeling as if her heart was about to leap out of her throat, and her body felt as if it had been set on fire. So Orizio softened his voice and said, "Let's stop here for today. You need to become stronger before you can endure me." As he spoke, he grabbed the girl's little hand and brought it to his lips, gently biting it open. He then took out the pure white handkerchief he had prepared long ago and let the bright red blood drip onto it. Then he instructed the maid at the side, Tell Gino to send this to my father's palace." After that, he kissed the girl's palm as if she were a treasure and told her to rest well. Soon he disappeared from before the girl, leaving only Lixiana behind. Blushing, she lay on the papyrus and only then belatedly realized that the servants had been standing nearby the whole time, watching the intimacy between the two. Did Nicole see it too? How am I supposed to face her from now on? But before Lixiana could keep thinking, Nicole, with her survival instincts in full force, appeared. "I'm sorry," His Highness suddenly came. "Are you alright, my lady?" Hearing this, Lixiana blushed and shed tears of relief. She didn't see it. That's wonderful. The next day, Gino stood at the palace gates with proof that Orizio had lost his virginity, waiting anxiously to be summoned. "Sigh, I knew this day would come sooner or later." Soon, the solemn and magnificent palace gates slowly opened. Gino's respectful voice rang out. "Gino, attendant from Tesca, on behalf of His Highness Orizio Lumen, pays respects to His Majesty Sol Lumen, Almighty Son of the Sun. I humbly request an audience with your majesty." After Sol motioned for the others in the hall to withdraw, he asked, "Who is the girl who took Orizio's virginity?" Gino broke out in a cold sweat, clenched his hands, and forced himself to say, "She is human." For a moment, the palace fell completely silent. After a long while, Sol's majestic voice sounded again. Did he bring back the human sacrifice offered to him? Is she a priestess with special powers? Is she the woman described in the legend? The string of questions left Gino completely bewildered. He instinctively blurted out, "Please say that again." Then he immediately came to his senses and hurriedly explained, "She is absolutely not someone from the legend. She seems to be only a priestess with weak divine power. I believe she has no connection whatsoever to the legend. Your Majesty, you don't think His Highness Orizio intends to rebel against you, do you? My son Orizio is still of value to me, despite his arrogance and rudeness. Change her, so that everyone will think she is a courtesan from the imperial palace." Hearing this, Gino asked in confusion, "You don't mean for me to—" But Sol interrupted him. "I am certain Orizio will only appear briefly, and then return to Tesca. That is very likely. While they remain here, others must believe that this human girl came from the imperial palace. Once Orizio loses interest in her, we can dispose of her. Before that, I will keep this matter sealed. I, Sol Lumen, have no intention of going to war with my third son." Lixiana remained unconscious for an entire week. During this time, her previously ruined and weakened body gradually recovered. Even the brand of a runaway slave that had been burned onto her since childhood completely disappeared. The smooth, unmarked skin before her eyes made the girl understand that all of this was because of Orizio. Looking at Nicole, whose face was full of worry because she had been unconscious, Lixiana hesitated for a moment, then awkwardly said, "I'm a little hungry. Could you help me get something to eat?" Nicole was instantly so excited that her face flushed red. "I'll go get you something right away." After quickly finishing 2 large basins of food, Lixiana stretched contentedly. "I don't know why, but I feel lighter than ever before. It was only a single kiss, and yet it made me feel this energetic." She suddenly laughed at herself. "You know, I'm not a priestess at all. Before I came here, I was actually just a slave. The slave mark reminded me every moment that I was someone at the very bottom of society. But it disappeared because of one simple kiss. It feels as if everything is too fleeting." Hearing this, Nicole looked deeply disapproving. "Please don't say that. Your life will absolutely not be fleeting. In the heavenly palace, everyone except the gods is equal. That means your past is meaningless here. And no matter what others think, His Highness Orizio chose you to be his woman, which means everyone must respect you." Hearing this, Lixiana froze at once. She turned to look at Nicole. Nicole looked like an angel as she said, "You are also the first lady I have ever served. To me, you are very special, and I am also very happy to serve you." Those warm words completely melted her, the resolve that had always been as hard as steel. Lixiana, who had never felt such warmth before, finally could not hold back her tears of happiness. At that moment, she was completely relieved. In her heart, she softly said to herself, "You must think this through carefully. This may be your last lucky chance." Looking up at the dazzling sun, the girl's ears suddenly echoed with Orizio's whisper. She abruptly turned around, but did not see the man's figure. But Lixiana merely smiled faintly. "If my life is in Prince Orizio's hands no matter what, then I will follow the guidance of the gods and make good use of everything I have been given." Then she walked to the papyrus Orizio had sent, preparing to make full use of herself. After a burst of busy work, in only half a day, she filled the palace of Tesca with papyrus, leaving both Orizio and Gino dumbfounded. Since waking up, the energetic Lixiana had been weaving baskets nonstop. Nicole kept urging her to rest, but she refused every time. After learning of the situation, Orizio said unhappily, "You've wasted the little energy you have left on something this boring." Gino at the side was also so exasperated, he nearly went mad. What a complete mess. How am I supposed to turn this stubborn human girl into an elegant and refined fairy? But just as he finished speaking, Orizio, ever protective, sealed his mouth with divine power. At that moment, The man's preference for beauty over friendship was displayed to the fullest. Seeing the girl energetically welcome his arrival, Orizio spoke somewhat incredulously. Lixiana, it's me. I know. You are the great sun god's third son, the sun prince who values etiquette above all else. According to your request, I have been completing my task the whole time. According to my request, I told you that my hands are very skillful and that I can make sturdy things. You said you wanted me to do my utmost. Hearing this, Orizio suddenly extended his hand toward the girl. Why not let me have a look? Hearing this, Lixiana quickly handed over the basket she had woven. Orizio held up the basket and was completely stunned. Then he extended his warm hand once more. Give me your hand. Your hand is dirty. The moment he finished speaking, he used divine power in a flash to clean the girl up. Feeling Orizio's concern, Lixiana blushed at once. But before the ambiguous atmosphere could last even 2 seconds, Nicole's tactless voice came from the side, shouting anxiously, Lord Gino seems a little off. The two of them looked toward Gino at the same time, only to see that Gino, whose mouth and nose had been sealed, was about to suffocate. So Orizio immediately waved his hand and released the seal. Gino, having regained his freedom, was truly furious. I thought I was going to suffocate. How could you treat me like this? What exactly am I supposed to do to make her look like a fairy from the imperial palace? Looking at the elf rolling around on the ground in a full-blown tantrum, Lixiana cheerfully thanked him. Gino, you're so kind. You made win for us. Thanks to your efforts, the papyrus dried much faster. Nicole also awkwardly chimed in from the side. That does seem to be true. Thank you, Lord Gino. Hearing this, Gino was furious beyond measure. I really can't take this anymore. This is absolutely not the time to be weaving papyrus baskets. But the girl refused righteously. I have to do this. This is the work His Highness assigned to me. Gino was so anxious he stood on tiptoe and reached out to snatch away the basket Lixiana had woven. What is wrong with you? Woman, put that down at once. I am Lixiana. My name is not woman. My name is Lixiana. Orizio's pupils contracted slightly, stunned by how unusually forceful the girl was today. A certain prince and a certain elf both froze in place. They muttered in low voices. What's wrong with her? What does this mean? Didn't you say she had been bedridden for a week? She really is. You don't think there's something wrong with her head, do you? Orizio did not answer, which counted as tacit agreement. The woman who had once wanted only death had now completely changed before his eyes. And she had even become obsessed with weaving papyrus baskets, but she seemed much happier than before. Lixiana said, full of vigor, do you have any other tasks to give me? Just say the word, and I promise I will give it everything I have. Looking at the girl before him, whose head was full of nothing but baskets, Gino ground his teeth in frustration. Very well. Miss Lixiana, can you play any musical instruments? The girl shook her head. Can you recite poetry? Can you sing or dance? She continued to shake her head. Good heavens. Then what exactly can you do? As you can see, I can weave sturdy papyrus baskets. The volcano in Gino's heart finally erupted completely at that moment. I want you to memorize everything on these scrolls. Stop touching those stupid papyrus baskets. Late at night, Gino stomped back and forth anxiously. This won't do. Absolutely won't do. She can't play instruments, and she can't dance or sing. No one will take her for a fairy. It seems the priestesses of Aratigo are not as capable in every way as I imagined. She is a slave. Did you say a slave? Gino found it hard to believe, then suddenly had a flash of inspiration and said, perhaps it would be better to visit the mage. You must cross a dangerous mountain to meet that mage. Surely you don't want to bring a weak human girl with you. We have no other choice. There is only 1 month left until the Empire Festival. I would rather risk climbing the mountain than let everyone discover that you slept with a human woman and be struck dead by lightning. Orizio fell into thought and suddenly remembered. We still have guests from the Imperial Palace to receive tomorrow. Has the Queen sent another traitor over for judgment? I hope you leave first thing tomorrow morning. I don't want them to smell the human scent on Lixiana. At this moment, not far from the palace of Tesca, the three of them were struggling to make their way over the mountains. Gino, who usually lacked exercise, panted and complained, I should have had His Highness make us a cloud carriage. At the mention of Orizio, Lixiana suddenly remembered that early this morning, His Highness had come to see her. She suddenly really wanted to know why he had come to see her. Looking at a certain elf in front of her, who was running out of strength, Lixiana thought, I should do something for His Highness. Excuse me, what is it? You can climb onto my back. Hearing this, Gino was greatly startled and instinctively said, I'm getting on in years. This sort of thing doesn't suit me. Then he immediately reacted and haughtily added, but I can make an exception this once. Very soon, the three of them neared their destination. Gino pointed at the large rock ahead and said happily, it's right there. You've done very well. Then, he could not wait to jump down from the girl's back. It was the first time Lixiana had heard praise from Gino, and a sense of pride immediately welled up in her heart. She clasped her hands together and began thanking the gods for granting her a new life. I like it here. I can hear the forest sounds, the rustling leaves, the skittering insects, even the blowing wind feels alive. Gino, who had rushed ahead to lead the way, turned back and shouted, Why are you so slow? Hurry up, we're coming. Nicole quickly responded, then could not help complaining. Sometimes he really is like an irritable old man. Hearing this, Lixiana asked in confusion, how old is Gino? I'm not sure, but I'd say he's at least 500 years old. Lixiana saw a strange creature appear not far away. Its upper body was human, but its lower body was actually that of a horse. She thought she must have seen wrong, rubbed her eyes, but nothing changed. It turned out that this person was the mage they had come to visit. When he saw Lixiana, he also looked somewhat surprised and said to Gino, when I heard that His Highness had chosen his first companion, I thought he would choose someone like the fairy Aphrodite. Tell me honestly, is she really just a human girl? Gino said rather awkwardly, Mage. That is precisely why we came to you. Fortunately, she is much smarter than she looks, and she is also very good at weaving papyrus baskets. Hearing this, the mage spoke in some surprise, then heavily stamped his foot on the ground. In an instant, a huge goat monster appeared in midair. Both girls were so frightened they froze where they stood. Seeing this, the mage said, I only wanted to remind you that goat monsters appear in this area. You wouldn't want to be swallowed whole, would you? Gino at the side said weakly, didn't you understand? His Highness wants to give his chastity to this woman. I was only joking. Stay by my side, and you won't be hurt. That really wasn't funny at all. Very soon, the mage led them to a cave, which was where he lived. As soon as they reached the entrance, they were deeply shocked by the enormous collection of books before their eyes. And the mage, who had disappeared the moment he entered the cave, now reappeared carrying food. You must be hungry, right? Please help yourselves. If you don't mind, I'll go back and continue my work first. With that, without waiting for a response, he turned and left. Looking at the mages departing back, Lixiana sighed. He is a very good person. Gino replied, we crossed mountains to come see him, and all he served us was beer and venison. Nicole picked up the beer and joined the conversation. I heard he is the wisest sage. I've never seen so many scrolls. It's truly amazing. At this moment, Gino's mouth was stuffed with venison, but on hearing that he still did not forget to boast about himself. You call it amazing? I mastered this much knowledge long ago. Seeing this, Lixiana could not help covering her mouth and laughing. Gino asked with a baffled expression, why are you laughing? Lixiana answered, the way you were just now was rather cute. A certain elf's face flushed bright red in an instant, and Nicole added the finishing blow from the side. Lord Gino, your face is as red as a cherry. Lixiana accidentally glanced at the desk nearby. Seeing the pile of messy tools on the table, she could not help sighing. The mage must be very busy. Gino, who was eating like mad at the side, responded, indeed. He may seem somewhat rude, and his personality may also be a little strange, but without a doubt, he is the smartest scholar in this world. After eating and drinking his fill, Gino lay down directly and said lazily, he probably has no time for us right now. Since he's not here, let's rest first. Hearing this, Nicole panicked at once. The conditions here were far too crude, and she feared Lixiana would not rest well, so she frowned and said, you must be joking. The mage surely would not want us to stay the night here. But Lixiana enthusiastically picked up some dead branches. I'm fine, but before sleeping, there's still something I want to do. The queen's scheme was quietly unfolding within the palace of Tesca. Looking at the envoy from the imperial palace before him, Orizio said expressionlessly, you say he betrayed the queen? That is Pericles, my tutor, and the father of my friend. Clearly, they were a pair of spotless hands, yet Orizio seemed to see them covered in blood. He suddenly burst into laughter, yet scalding tears streamed from the corners of his eyes. The next second, he flashed into Lixiana's room. Seeing the empty palace, he then remembered that Lixiana had gone to the mage of Mount Cole, so he gathered divine power and instantly arrived at the girl's side. Looking at the sleeping girl, Orizio thought in dejection, will you also be like the others, unable to meet my eyes? Surging emotions instantly flooded his heart. Orizio directly embraced the girl beside him and nestled against her chest in satisfaction. Even if only for a moment, I want to rest in your arms. The human girl had finally decided to accept the Sun Prince's love, but the vicious queen was willing to do whatever it took to separate them. At this moment, in the garden of the Bovia's empire, the queen was hosting the fairies of the great families. We heard that the third prince has finally lost his virginity. I want to know what kind of sacred bloodline he united with. The fairies chattered among themselves, all believing that the queen surely knew the answer. But the queen only gave a cold smile. Even if she is descended from the gods, so what? In the end, Orizio will only marry the woman we have chosen for him. As she spoke, she glanced at the girl beside her. Do you disagree? Tara, who had been singled out by the queen, was momentarily stunned. Then she said without betraying emotion, why not see for yourselves on the day of the Empire Festival? What matters is what His Highness himself thinks. The queen raised the wine glass in her hand. I hope every one of you present will join us. Let us bless Prince Orizio for truly having his first woman. The brightest treasure of the Bovia's empire has finally made his choice. Soon, The banquet ended, and the queen tapped the table unhappily, signaling for ②Her to follow. She then brought ②Her back to her own palace. The moment they entered the room, ②Her violently hurled the crown from her head onto the marble floor. If His Highness had chosen a fairy from the Pyros family, I would not have felt this bad. How could he give his chastity to a nobody? ②Her, Orizio will eventually marry you. You have nothing to worry about. The queen picked up a glass of wine and sat down on the sofa. In a tone of certainty, she said, "The current Orizio is nothing more than a loyal dog at Sol's side, and I will also do everything I can to make him belong to you." After Lixiana was held by Orizio all night as he slept, she unexpectedly developed a fever the next day.
Nicole was frantic.
"Lord Gino, this is all your fault. She must have gotten sick because she carried you up the mountain the whole way." Hearing this, Gino hurriedly shouted, "I never asked her to carry me." At that moment, the mage, having heard the commotion, appeared. "What's wrong?" Nicole hurriedly said, "Please help us." Then the mage stepped forward and touched the girl's forehead. And just like that, the diagnosis was finished. "It's only fatigue. Give her some hibiscus tea with cinnamon in it, and she will recover soon." Seeing this, Nicole looked somewhat bewildered. "Are you sure?" The mage nodded. "I'll go prepare the tea. I should still have some herbs here." With that, he turned and left. Unexpectedly, he caught sight of the bookshelf at the side and was instantly startled. What is going on? Looking at the neatly organized scrolls before him, the magician finally understood how Lixiana had fallen ill. So he said to Nicole, "Once our clever little girl recovers, lessons can begin." Very soon, Lixiana woke up after drinking the flower tea. "Is it raining?" Hearing movement, Nicole immediately brightened up. "How are you feeling? Your fever seems to have gone down." The first thing Lixiana said after waking up was, "Where is His Highness?" Nicole replied, "I think he should be in his own palace. We arrived at the magician's cave yesterday, remember?" But Lixiana had clearly felt Orizio's presence last night. So could that have only been a dream? The girl suddenly sat up. "Where is Lord Gino?" Hearing this, Nicole said with obvious disdain, "Who cares where that vicious old man is?" As it happened, Gino heard that just as he came in. "What? Were you hoping something would happen to me?" Without even bothering to wipe the rainwater off himself, Gino walked straight toward Lixiana. "Here," the girl asked in confusion. "What is this?" Gino looked smug. "I brought you your favorite papyrus. I remember you asked His Highness for an entire mountain of papyrus." Nicole looked speechless. "Why would you bring papyrus? Apples would have made more sense." Just then, a voice came from outside the door. "Little Ice Fairy, has Miss Lixiana woken up yet?" Hearing this, Nicole froze for a moment, finally remembering that the magician had said Lixiana's lessons were about to begin. So she quickly grabbed the girl's hand and led her to the magician. But the scene before her still left Lixiana completely stunned. The magician merely swished a few times and turned several silver threads into a silver bowl. It was simply amazing. Lixiana stared in shock with her little mouth open wide enough to fit an egg. The magician turned to Lixiana. "Would you like to try?" But before the girl could answer, Gino, standing to the side, frowned and said angrily, "I asked you to turn her into a goddess, not into a blacksmith." But the magician was not flustered in the slightest. "Let them say whatever they want. It does not matter. And the world will regard Miss Lixiana as a descendant of the goddess Circe. They will realize that she learned how to forge metal bows from you." Hearing this, Gino waved his hand helplessly. "First of all, I have no interest in any of this at all. Second, Circe is the goddess of stone." Nicole, puffing up her little cheeks at the side, was still seriously thinking about what could possibly be wrong with stone. The magician completely ignored Gino's words and turned to Lixiana, whose face clearly said, "I want to learn. Little girl, follow me, all right. First like this, then like this." In less than 0.1 seconds, a lifelike silver flower appeared in the girl's hand. The two fairies present were both dumbfounded and instantly became Lixiana's #1 fans. "It's so beautiful, really." Seeing this, the magician also showed his satisfaction with a bright white smile and patted the girl on the shoulder. "His Highness visited me last night. I will do everything I can and not disappoint his expectations." Hearing this, Lixiana was startled for a moment, and her little face instantly turned red. "His Highness came here last night, so it was not a dream." Today was the day for the three of them to set out on the journey back, but that man still had not appeared. At that moment, the rain outside the cave kept pouring down. The magician brought over a basket of dried amber so that they could keep warm while going down the mountain in the storm. Gino scratched his head somewhat awkwardly. It turned out that he was the one who had insisted on going back down the mountain today, because a full week of non-stop rain had left Gino deeply worried about Orizio. After all, only Orizio's emotions could directly affect the weather. The three of them walked along the muddy mountain path. Looking at the terrible weather before him, Gino could not help but grow even more worried. "I want to know why His Highness is so depressed. He clearly knew we were going back today." Hearing that, Lixiana was puzzled. Prince Orizio is in a bad mood, but why would his emotions be related to the weather? A mortal like me really can never truly understand the gods. But even so, I still want to know more about His Highness, and I also want to know why he wants me to live forever. Just then, several bolts of lightning suddenly struck down. Nicole was instantly so frightened that she burst into tears. Gino knitted his brows tightly, feeling even more uneasy. His Highness simply does not know when to stop. Then he reminded them, watch your step, the road is slippery. Immediately afterward, he started running through the rain, and the two girls hurried after him. Very soon, they arrived at the entrance to ②Her Palace. Gino looked full of anxiety. Take Miss Lixiana to the tower. Take Miss Lixiana to the tower? I'm going to talk to His Highness. With that, he turned and ran off, leaving the two of them standing there in a daze. After coming back to her senses, Nicole led Lixiana into the tower with heavy steps, but Lixiana absent-mindedly gazed out the window toward the temple where Orizio was. Yet what met her eyes was a faint blood-colored glow. What kind of light was that? Look over there. I wonder if something happened to His Highness. Hearing this, Nicole comforted her. Maybe, but it might just be light reflected off the stone walls. Let's hurry. You can usually see it when it rains, so don't think too much about it. Gino rushed to the temple where Orizio was as fast as he could, but the glaring scarlet all over the ground only made him even more frantic. Prince Orizio, where are you? He furiously grabbed one attendant who had collapsed in a pool of blood. Have all of you really completely lost consciousness? Where exactly did His Highness go? Suddenly, Gino froze, as the corner of his eye caught a familiar piece of clothing, and he looked closely. The person lying ahead in the pool of blood was none other than Orizio. In the next second, he immediately ran over on his short little legs. A healing halo quickly appeared around Orizio. Orizio's eyelashes trembled lightly, and he slowly opened his eyes, revealing dark black pupils as he looked at the person in front of him. So it's you. Then he sat up somewhat blankly, and Gino spoke while using his divine power. If this continues, you will only keep letting the queen manipulate you. You must go see the first prince immediately. He is a pure-blood prince. He will definitely be able to solve this. But at that moment, Orizio was overflowing with deep sorrow and helplessness. Even if I go to him, nothing will change. Today was clearly not a day of judgment, but I still killed them all without hesitation. So when you get the chance, you must kill me. I am a murderer. Looking at Orizio, who was trapped in pain and self-blame, Gino cried so hard that tears kept falling. You are not a murderer. You are Bovia's only omnipotent god of judgment. Please go see your brother Saltus immediately. Hearing that, Orizio smiled with helplessness all over his face. Then his face began to glow. In the next instant, he vanished from where he stood, leaving only Gino sobbing softly by himself. Why does the queen have to treat His Highness like this? He only wanted to live a peaceful life. Looking at the increasingly heavy rain outside the magic barrier, Lixiana said worriedly, are you still going home? It's already very late. At that moment, Nicole was holding a cup of hot tea. The rain is too heavy. Lord Gino told me to stay here and wait until it stops before leaving. Hearing that, Lixiana said, what if His Highness comes to find us? I know you're very afraid of him. But Nicole was not flustered at all. His Highness will not come for a while. Lixiana froze for a moment and said blankly, I understand. But before her eyes, that man's handsome, almost unreal face appeared for no reason. So Prince Orizio, for the time being, will not come to see me. For some reason, her heart suddenly felt empty. The rain is falling so heavily, which means Prince Orizio is in a terrible mood. I do not know whether he is so depressed because something happened in the temple, and Gino also looked so frightened and so worried. At some point, I began to find myself thinking of His Highness involuntarily all the time. Thinking of the warmth when our bodies were pressed together. Thinking of the spark that burst forth when our lips touched, and when he pinned me beneath him, that heavy weight. Thinking of this, Lixiana could not help covering her flushed cheeks. I want to know when His Highness will come back. Orizio, who had been cursed by the vicious queen and had therefore committed wrongdoing, arrived at Leinachua. At this moment, the first prince, Saltus, was focused on reading. Suddenly, a faint gleam flashed behind him. Sensing something unusual, Saltus turned around. Orizio, is that you? I have said this before. Send word before you come, and I can arrange for someone to properly receive you. But why do you always barge in silently, like an abandoned ghost? A flash of golden light passed, and Orizio instantly appeared before Saltus. Looking at Orizio, who seemed somewhat dispirited, Saltus raised black curtains around them. So, how many people did you kill this time? Orizio answered, I do not remember. Saltus strode forward and grabbed Orizio's wrist. It has not even been 3 months since the mass execution, yet your hands are already stained with blood again. This time, Orizio said nothing and only looked quietly at Saltus with those sorrowful eyes. Seeing this, Saltus continued, was this done by Queen Avaricia? You need more than one purification to wash the smell of blood off you. I need to ask Leinachua for more cleansing water. Crystal tears slid down Orizio's cheeks like pearls from a broken string. Will things really get better? Even Saltus's divine power no longer works on me. Thinking of this, Orizio closed his eyes in pain. My hands are stained with blood. But for some reason, he suddenly wanted very badly to see Lixiana. After suddenly opening his eyes, he came back to his senses and mocked himself inwardly. Orizio, you really are a fool. At a time like this, you are still thinking of that human girl. At this moment, Saltus came over carrying a basin of cleansing water and spoke with a worried expression. You are a judge, but more importantly, you are also the Sun Prince. A son of the sun cannot send to death people who should not have been sentenced to death. If this situation continues, your solar divine power will be stripped away, and your essence will gradually disappear. Unless you want to live in hell forever like Yama. I heard that you gave your virginity to a fairy. Which family is she from? When I first heard the news, I even thought you had already gone over to the queen's side. That is absolutely impossible. Sultus continued, you should accept Terra's proposal and then consider the next step. Only then can you survive. That would not save me either. The Pyros family would gain even greater influence within the royal family. Let me ask you something. Do you want Caligo to inherit the throne? Sultus froze for a moment and did not answer. So Orizio stood up and said, Dear brother, if Caligo ascends the throne, then there will be no need for war. Because whether there is war or not, I will turn Bovias into ruins. Hearing this, Sultus frowned. Being able to rule Anitua is enough for me already. You should know that no matter what our father soul has done, anyone who opposes him will be seen by the world as a traitor. So stop wasting time supporting me. Take care of yourself first. But Orizio merely curled the corner of his mouth indifferently. I would be very happy to oppose our father. Lishiana, asleep in a dream, was suddenly awakened by a shout and sprang up from the bed. The one who had come was Gino. He had brought the items on the magician's list. With a serious expression, he said to Lishiana, you can begin practicing. Lishiana was a little confused. Are you sure you received His Highness's permission? Gino crossed his arms. You cannot dance and you cannot sing, so you should at least become proficient in handling silver crafts. And Nicole, when Lady Lishiana is working, I want you to read these poems to her. Then he turned to Lishiana again and said, 15 days from now, you will attend the Empire's New Moon Festival as a fairy, but I am human, so you must pretend to be a fairy. You should know that humans are not allowed to enter the Heavenly Palace. If anyone discovers that you are human, the three of us will all be struck dead by lightning. Hearing that, Lishiana's heart jolted. This is even more serious than I thought. She then asked, what will happen after that? Seeing that Gino had not understood what she meant, Lishiana explained, after I deceive everyone and make them believe I am a fairy, what will happen? Hearing this, Gino was briefly speechless. I cannot tell her that once all of this is over, she will be burned to death. So after a pause, he said, His Highness will marry the woman his family has chosen for him, and then you will be free. Lishiana suddenly grabbed Gino's hand. She gripped him so hard that even Gino staggered from the force. Are you telling the truth? You mean I will gain my freedom? Hearing that, Gino quickly pulled his hand back. Covering his mouth, he coughed lightly. You might become free. Lishiana instantly flushed red with excitement. I promise I will work hard. I'll start right now. 10 days later, Teska Palace. Lishiana was diligently practicing handling silver crafts. Beside her, Nicole looked exhausted. Can you remember these poems? Lishiana looked confident. I think I have memorized at least 20 volumes. Nicole then asked, then can you recite the poems you remember? Hearing that, Lishiana closed her eyes and began reciting calmly. Whenever I see your smile bloom across your face, my heart starts pounding. Nicole suddenly shuddered all over. Then she instantly reverted to her true form at the speed of light and vanished from the spot with a whoosh. Not noticing anything unusual, Lishiana kept reciting. Just by secretly glancing at you once, my heart bursts into flames. Your radiant smile, a familiar and pleasant male voice suddenly rang out. Lishiana froze instantly. At that moment, that beautiful voice in the palace continued, makes my heart ache. When I see you, I do not know what to say. Your graceful eyelashes and sharp gaze. Oh, so beautiful. Apollo's song is sung for you, my beloved. Only after hearing all of it did Lishiana come back to her senses and turn to look. It was none other than His Highness Orizio, whom she had not seen for many days. Orizio looked at the girl he had been longing for day and night. With a teasing tone, he said, have you decided to become a poetic blacksmith? Lishiana's little face turned red in an instant, and her heart began pounding uncontrollably. Seeing the lifelike silver flower in the girl's hand, Orizio walked over and hugged her from behind. You are more talented than I imagined. Then, carefully lifting her injured right hand, he said with a serious expression, but, Lishiana, I do not want my possession to suffer any harm. Then, he took the girl's hand and pressed it to his face, so you should learn to care more about yourself. Lishiana's little face turned even redder. He is so overbearing. What if he takes away all my tools? So the girl quickly pulled her hand back and hid it behind her. They will not hurt me. I will be more careful from now on. After all, I am doing all of this for you. Hearing that, Orizio silently turned away and sat down on a sofa nearby. Go on. I will stay quietly. The girl was slightly taken aback. You do not have to do that. Lishiana suddenly stopped because she did not want Orizio to realize that she wanted to live. And at that moment, Orizio had already fallen into his own thoughts. He thought of what he had just said to his brother. I would be very happy to oppose our father. Orizio's gaze gradually became firm. Then his eyes flickered slightly. Looking at Lishiana's back, he thought to himself in secret, On my way flying home, I kept thinking about her. Is it because she makes me feel at ease? Or her fingertips carrying the scent of fresh grass, the way she hurriedly wiped her mouth after eating peaches, or the sweet fragrance her skin gave off when she pretended to be asleep. It is all those tiny moments. Whenever I recall those moments, my chaotic mind seems to slowly calm down. At the side, Lixiana absent-mindedly toyed with the silver thread in her hand. I want to ask him why it has rained so heavily these past few days, and why he looks so exhausted.
But I do not dare think that way.
Because Nicole said that in order to marry, the Sun Prince must lose his virginity. It is a kind of ritual. The Queen has always wanted the third prince to marry, and she and the Pyros family have always been watching His Highness. But in her mind, the words Orizio had said after kissing her last time surfaced uncontrollably. Let's stop here for today. You have to become stronger before you can withstand me. Lixiana's little face turned red once again. I do not know why he chose me, but tonight, perhaps we really will. Thinking of this, the girl's arm unconsciously brushed against a piece of silverware glowing red hot nearby. Burned, Lixiana could not help crying out in pain. Orizio's thoughts were instantly pulled back. Come here to me. The girl was startled at once. Then she hid her burned hand and forced a smile. I'm fine. It's only a small burn. I can smell scorched flesh. Come here quickly. Hearing that, Lixiana had no choice but to drag her heavy steps over in front of Orizio. Orizio carefully held the girl's hand. It looks painful. It must be healed immediately. As he spoke, he lowered a kiss onto her wound. Orizio was suddenly startled. A strange presence was approaching. A royal envoy seemed to be about to pass by here. This is bad. They will definitely be able to smell the scent of a human from her burn. I have to cover it with my own scent. Looking at the bewildered girl before him, Orizio said, let us finish it. The thing we did not finish last time. Hearing that, Lixiana blushed with embarrassment. You mean here? Seeing this, Orizio scooped the girl up in his arms. He looked at her with eyes full of tenderness. You're blushing. Is the fire in the bellows too hot for your skin? Before she could finish speaking, Orizio suddenly kissed her. Then he laid her down on the bed and leaned over her. Looking at Lixiana's helpless, bewildered face, Orizio suddenly stopped. Contrary to what I said out loud, I think Lixiana is not ready to bear me yet. Then he got up, preparing to leave. But Lixiana became anxious. Is there something you do not like? I will do as you say. It turned out that she thought that if she did not do this, Nicole and Gino would face a deadly crisis. Orizio suppressed the desire in his heart. I do not know what you were thinking, but right now, the girl suddenly seemed enlightened. Do you want me to kiss you first? Orizio was briefly speechless. Then he smiled mischievously. Leaning down close to the girl, he said, are you sure you will not regret it? Lixiana loosened her hair and quickly closed her eyes. Looking at the girl's determined face, Orizio's breathing gradually quickened, and he soon moved close to her reddened lips. Then, as you wish. At that moment, thunder roared in the clear night sky. Gino, who had never seen such a strange phenomenon before, looked out the window with some worry. What has His Highness done again? Sensing that something was wrong, Gino turned around and was instantly shocked. It was Orizio, appearing before him while carrying the unconscious Lixiana. Gino's fur stood on end on the spot. What exactly did you do to Lady Lixiana? Put her down immediately. Orizio carefully laid the girl on the bed before speaking indifferently. We did what every man and woman does. If only Lixiana had already become immortal. Gino immediately let out a shrill scream. Then he stretched out his short, chubby little hand and hurriedly began treating the girl. Before the new moon festival, you cannot go near her. Orizio asked in confusion. What are you talking about? Gino continued. No holding hands, no kissing, no physical contact of any kind. After hearing that, Orizio said somewhat displeased, are you ordering me around now? And at that moment, Gino had just finished examining Lixiana. Unable to hold back any longer, he turned and shouted at Orizio. I knew this would happen. Why have you still not figured it out after 2 whole centuries? I know you finally bloomed like an iron tree, but this time things have truly gone out of control. Hearing this, the veins at Orizio's temple throbbed with anger. He directly used divine power to give the loose-tongued Gino a small lesson. Seeing black smoke rise from the top of Gino's pink head, he then let out a cold snort. Afterward, he lifted a strand of the girl's hair, and his expression instantly softened. No matter what they say, you finally belong to me forever. Queen Avaricia was leaning in the arms of the sun god Sol. When will Caligo finally come back? Ever since he left, even our constellations have changed. Sol picked up a glass of wine and said coldly, I can still hear the fairies he killed crying. The queen quickly explained, but that was all those women's fault. They were the ones who wanted to climb into his bed. Even after hearing that, Sol did not relent. He also murdered a member of the royal family. Hearing this, the queen smiled charmingly. You are right, it is all Caligo's fault. But your majesty, Caligo's greatest fault is that he inherited your beauty. We still have to bring him back. The new moon festival is almost here. At this point, the queen could not help clenching her fists. Even Orizio is coming, so how can Caligo not attend? But Sol looked stern. Because of Caligo's sins, The scales of heaven have already tipped severely. It will take at least another 1,000 days to calm my wrath. Looking at the emperor, who simply would not budge, the queen suddenly stood up from the sofa. She ingratiatingly bowed to Sol. If that is your will, but inwardly, she was full of resentment. My son was banished to the mortal world merely because he killed a few women. A respectful voice from an attendant came. His Majesty Sol Lumen, Prince Saltus Lumen requests an audience. Very soon, Saltus appeared before Sol. I hope all is well with you. Then he greeted the queen as well with a hand kiss salute. The queen politely praised him. I have heard that under your efforts, the land of Lenichua is becoming more and more beautiful. Seeing this, Sol frowned and said coldly, you may withdraw. Then he waved his hand and erected a barrier around them. Saltus, why have you come so suddenly?
This is not like you.
Saltus answered, I came to talk about Orizio. Hearing that, Sol's gaze turned cold. If you want to talk about the judge, then I do not want to hear it. Hearing this, Saltus's heart jolted, but he still voiced the dissatisfaction in his heart. Why do you not stop the queen? Orizio's mentor, Pericles, is also on the list of those to be executed. Sol coughed lightly. Saltus, you are too kind to that boy. You should know that mercy is of no help at all in maintaining heaven's balance. Because of Orizio's power, the scales have already become unbalanced. This decision was made to correct heaven's balance. Hearing that, Saltus clenched the hand holding the edge of his clothing. But Orizio is still the only one worthy of trust. Then, with anger, he demanded, is Queen Avaricia involved in this? At those words, Sol's expression darkened instantly. The aura around him suddenly turned sharp. I am Sol, the sun god. Even if both the sun and moon cease to exist, that fact will never change. I would never alter the scales for personal gain. Do you want the goddess of fate to shorten your lifespan? If what you say is true, then I request that you allow Caligo and Orizio to duel. Sol spoke calmly. The time has not yet come. Hearing that, Saltus retorted, do you still want to give Caligo another chance? In a moment of impulse, he killed innocent lives. That too will upset the balance. Sol hesitated somewhat, but Orizio is not qualified to become my successor. If that is what you say, then I am not qualified to be your eldest son either. You know very well that some people do not acknowledge the relationship between me and my wife. Although your mother was only a fairy, she was a descendant of omnipotent Zeus. You are completely different from Orizio. His mother was only a lowly human. When did you become so cowardly? Because of your orders, Orizio's hands are already covered in blood. Hearing that, Sol's veins bulged with fury. How dare you? He was born for judgment. If Orizio had not carried out his duties of judgment, heaven's balance would have been broken long ago. But he is still your son. Sol sharply interrupted. He is also a god we cannot control. If he cannot bear the burden that fate has given him, then his very existence is a curse. I do not want to hear you mention Orizio again. Hearing that, Saltus felt completely powerless inside, but he still wanted to fight for one last trace of fairness for Orizio. We all know that if Orizio makes up his mind, he can burn the heavenly palace to ashes at any time. The first time the Sun Prince infused a human girl with solar energy, the human girl was utterly unable to endure it and fainted on the spot. When she woke up again, Lixiana broke out in a cold sweat. The pain spreading through her whole body made her certain that everything that had happened last night was real. Looking at her faintly glowing body, the girl froze instantly. Only then did she suddenly realize, have I obtained immortality? Nicole walked in. Lady Lixiana, are you all right? You were being so quiet that I was about to go call Lord Gino.
How do you feel now?
Lixiana raised her arm. Something seems strange about my body. It's glowing, as if I rolled around in a sea of golden sand. Hearing this, Nicole smiled and nodded. Indeed, she had just been about to explain, when it was as if she suddenly sensed something, and her expression changed drastically. With a thump, she reverted to her true form and vanished in an instant. Lixiana was also slightly startled, because she discovered that her senses had actually become extraordinarily sharp. She could even detect, from the faint fluctuations in the air, that Orizio was standing right behind her. Orizio smiled and said, my essence seems to have spread throughout your entire body. You must drink more holy water, otherwise your body may suffer intense pain. As he spoke, he reached out and took hold of the blanket covering the girl. Lixiana immediately blushed with embarrassment and quickly clutched the blanket tightly against her chest. Seeing this, Orizio could not help curling up the corner of his lips. What are you trying to do? These two are tugging back and forth, so sweetly, it is practically spilling off the screen. But Lixiana only smiled awkwardly. I am just a little cold. Hearing the girl's clumsy excuse, Orizio could not help teasing softly. Then let me warm you. As he said that, he naturally sat down beside the girl. With one arm around her waist, he directly drew her into his embrace. He had only meant to tease Lixiana a little, but instead he first stirred himself up and involuntarily leaned his face closer. He domineeringly lifted the girl's chin and instantly stole all her breath away. Just then, the mood-killing Gino appeared and cried out at the sight before him. What are you doing? This won't do. Interrupted, Orizio said, somewhat displeased. It was only a kiss. You interrupted us, and you ruined the whole atmosphere. Next time, remember to choose a more suitable time to appear. Looking at the utterly unconcerned Orizio, Gino wore a serious expression. Have you already forgotten my warning? The two of you cannot have physical contact. Orizio let out a soft sigh. Then Gino walked up to the girl again and handed her the holy water. You must drink the essence holy water every day. My healing ability is limited. Only by drinking the holy water can you stay alive. Hearing this, Lixiana had no choice but to obediently drink it. Seeing this, Gino continued, His Highness really did inject a large amount of solar essence into your body. Lixiana immediately choked on the holy water, and Orizio, beside her, hurriedly patted her gently on the back. Careful, he said, then comforted her. Otherwise, your body will feel as if it's burning. Right after that, he snapped his fingers. Nicole appeared instantly. Without even turning his head, Orizio instructed, Make sure Lixiana drinks the holy water every day until we set off for the Celestial Palace. Then he lowered his voice by Lixiana's ear and said, I know this isn't easy, but remember my words. You must drink 1 cup every day. A few days later, Lixiana was drinking the essence holy water. Nicole looked at the somewhat exhausted Lixiana and said with concern, You've worked too hard today. Lixiana felt a little embarrassed, thinking that Nicole had also been working hard for her the whole time. Suddenly, Lixiana had an idea. I want to make a beautiful hairpin for you. After saying that, she stood up and walked toward the workbench. The moment she picked up her tools, she sensed a disturbance in the air beside her. Looking at the shadow servant who had suddenly appeared, Lixiana's heart tightened. What wind blew you here? The shadow servants looked around mechanically and answered, His Highness has ordered us to remove anything that could possibly cause you harm. Very soon, the entire palace became completely empty. Seeing this, Nicole burst into tears. They've gone too far. They even took away the hairpin that the great mage bestowed on you. But Lixiana remained calm. It's all right. There's no need to be angry. Nicole came into the courtyard somewhat fearfully. Why did Lord Gino call me out so late? She wondered uneasily. Suddenly, she sensed a strange fluctuation in the air. It was actually the hairpin that had previously been taken away by the shadow servants. But Nicole just stared at it blankly without making any move. Gino, who had been observing in secret, finally could not help but curse aloud. You stupid idiot. What are you waiting for? Pick it up. Hearing this, Nicole froze on the spot with a baffled expression. Seeing that Nicole still had not moved, Gino explained, I cast a spell on this thing, which means no one can see it, including the shadow servants, and even His Highness. Do you want Lady Lixiana to stay depressed in her room? Of course not. Nicole immediately bent down and carefully picked up the hairpin from the ground. Then she ran off quickly. Seeing this, Gino was rather speechless. How could a little fairy be this cautious? Orizio, who had suddenly appeared, replied blandly. Hearing the familiar voice by his ear, Gino turned his head to look, and his eyes nearly popped out in shock. Orizio continued, As punishment for deceiving me, you are forbidden from coming near me until before the new moon festival arrives. When Lixiana saw the hairpin Nicole had brought back, she finally became happy again. Orizio, who saw this scene through his divine power, felt somewhat uneasy inside. I can't believe Gino actually did this before I did. When the Sun Prince saw his beloved human girl again, he was struck speechless for a moment by Lixiana in full dress. Originally, he had been worried that with the girl's weak constitution, it might be difficult for her to attend the upcoming New Moon Festival as a fairy. But the moment the carefully dressed Lixiana appeared, Orizio, who had lived for 2 centuries, felt shy for the first time. Even little old Gino blushed bright red from being dazzled by her. Being stared at like this by the two of them, Lixiana felt a little awkward. She was so nervous that she did not even dare move carelessly. Looking at the bewildered girl, Orizio slowly spoke. You pass as a fairy now. You may attend the New Moon Festival soon. The ship bound for Bovias set sail. Lixiana stared fixedly at a certain place on the ship. Is there a statue on the ship? Orizio nodded. That was my first Black Panther. Regrettably, it only lived for 1 century. The man paused. But you will live a long time because my solar energy has been infused into your body. Then he stepped toward Lixiana and gently pulled the girl into his arms again. Say something. Hearing this, the girl was stunned for a moment as she looked at Orizio's handsome face. The words slipped out of her mouth. So beautiful. Then she awkwardly added, I mean, this statue is very beautiful. Orizio raised his hand and lifted the girl's chin. When you enter Bovias, you cannot act so afraid of me. Do you remember how brave you were when we first met? You must let everyone know that you are my first woman. Once we leave this ship, I can no longer tolerate your current state. You will play the role of my lover in Bovias, and perhaps now is the best time to start practicing. Hearing this, Lixiana suddenly remembered a previous conversation with Nicole. At that time, she had tightly held Nicole's hands. Blushing furiously, she asked, Have you ever been in love?
Of course I have.
I told you before, Love is the breath of fairies. Nicole looked excited, just like a seasoned expert in romance, and spoke endlessly. Just thinking about falling in love makes my heart pound. Then, how do you look at someone affectionately? Well, I've really never thought about that question. Nicole rested her chin in her hand and thought with some distress. Then inspiration struck her. Why don't you think about the most beautiful thing you've ever seen? That kind of gorgeous and astonishing thing. Hearing this, a series of beautiful things surfaced in Lixiana's mind. A beautiful crown, a magnificent pillar of light, miraculous fragrant oil. In the end, the image froze on Orizio's breathtaking figure. Lixiana's face instantly turned red.
This can't be right.
I must be crazy. The most beautiful, the most magnificent, the most miraculous existence. I think of those foolish mortals who ruin their lives by falling in love with gods. I can't believe I've become one of them. Seeing that Lixiana still had not responded, Orizio deliberately interrupted the girl's thoughts with displeasure. So, Lixiana, I hope you've had enough time to practice. How dare you make a god wait? Lixiana suddenly came back to her senses and hurriedly replied, "Yes, I will, Your Highness." Seeing this, Orizio's hand around the girl's waist tightened slightly. Lixiana looked up and unexpectedly crashed into his deep pool-like eyes. "Then why don't you show me directly?" The girl was on the verge of tears, her face full of confusion. What exactly am I supposed to do? She unconsciously clenched her fists and kept encouraging herself in her heart. I must stay clear-headed. There's no turning back now. I have to play Prince Orizio's love-struck lover well. Looking at the girl who had frozen again, Orizio said with some dissatisfaction, "You've disappointed me again. I thought you would be moved by my beauty." Hearing this, Lixiana broke out in a cold sweat on her forehead. This is bad. Suddenly, she seemed to think of something. What if I treat His Highness as a human? He is just a man angry with his lover, that's all. Lixiana could not help but cover her mouth and laugh softly. As if she had suddenly understood, she said, "I'm sorry, would this do?" Orizio glanced at her. He froze instantly. This was the first time he had seen the girl look at him with such affection. Her eyes filled entirely with him. Orizio spoke with feigned composure, but the corners of his mouth, which he simply could not keep down, thoroughly gave him away. And just like that, innocent Lixiana gradually fell into the love practice carefully designed by the man. Soon a day and a half passed. Lixiana stood at the bow, gazing at the distant scenery. Beside her, Gino kept a stern little face and seriously instructed, "We're about to arrive in Bovias. Bovias and Tesca are located at opposite ends of heaven. You must remain alert at all times. Bovias is completely different from Tesca. If you are even slightly careless, the Imperial Army will punish you harshly. You must play the role of His Highness's beloved well." Looking at the girl who still had not realized the seriousness of the situation, Gino forcibly suppressed the anger in his heart and clenched his fists, but still did not get any response from the girl. In the end, the irritable Gino could no longer hold back. He jumped up anxiously. "Do you understand what I'm saying or not? No matter where you go, you must stand by His Highness's side." Orizio, who had been single for 200 years, was still foolishly savoring the love practice with Lixiana by himself. That affectionate gaze made the man unable to stop himself from grinning foolishly first. Then he suddenly sat up straight. "She can't really have fallen in love with me. I need to find a way to help her gather courage." But before he could think of a solution, Lixiana appeared before him. "I'll try again. Do you think this is all right? Do you think I can pass?" Looking at the girl with spring in her eyes, Orizio was completely lost. "Yes, this is very convincing." Then he could no longer suppress the fondness for the girl in his heart and gently patted her on the head. "Good luck." As soon as he said that, he vanished from the spot with a whoosh. Before Lixiana could react, a powerful wave of cheers rang out by her ears. She saw that the shore was packed with dense crowds, and everyone was cheering for Prince Orizio's arrival, loudly calling out to this god of judgment of Bovias. Only then did Lixiana understand why Orizio had suddenly disappeared. The man appeared before the girl once again. It turned out that Orizio had forgotten to say goodbye to the girl and had specially turned back. He looked at the girl with affectionate eyes and said slowly, "See you in a while." Then he disappeared from the spot again with a whoosh. Lixiana was a little baffled by his actions, but in the next second, she realized what it meant and instantly blushed red. At this moment, in the Bovias Imperial Palace, after ②Her heard that Orizio would bring Lixiana to the New Moon Festival as well, she angrily hurled the 39th bracelet away, instantly shattering that crystal-clear mirror. Quick, quick, bring me new jewelry, the kind that Prince Orizio will notice at a glance." The maids, so frightened that they hardly dared breathe, suddenly stopped and cried out, "Your Majesty the Queen." Queen Avaricia walked in gracefully with a frown. "What is going on here?" As she spoke, she came to ②Her's side. "You already possess the most valuable gemstone in Bovias, so what exactly are you making a fuss about now?" "But Aunt, His Highness Orizio is bringing that little fairy to the New Moon Festival too." "That's still not enough. If only I had ornaments crafted by the great mage." Hearing this, Avaricia's elegant expression darkened further. "Are you afraid that because of a few pieces of jewelry, you will lose to that foolish fairy?" Then she instructed the maids, "Dress this child at once. There's no time. Hurry up." Next, She picked up the sapphire bracelet that ②Her had thrown away and said in a low voice, "Stop throwing tantrums. I have reached the limit of my patience." Then Avaricious strode toward ②Her. She gently placed a hand on her stomach and said in a low voice, "Think about the child in your belly." ②Her froze at once, her pupils suddenly widening. "A child?" Avaricious let out a cold laugh and raised her hand to slap her. "How dare you lie to me? Do you want your child to die the moment it is born? Or would you rather let it become the Sun Prince's child? Listen carefully. No matter the cost, you must take Orizio from her." Facing the trembling ②Her, Avaricious barely suppressed her anger and added, "This is my final warning to you. You must deceive this god of judgment of heaven. If you win Orizio's love, you will not only become the family's most precious bargaining chip, but you will also save your lover and your child." Hearing this, ②Her bit her lip hard, and inwardly she swore, "I will definitely make Prince Orizio mine, no matter the cost." A brilliant light suddenly flashed through the splendid imperial palace of Bovias, and immediately afterward, a crack was torn open in space. An attendant's voice rang through the great hall. "Prince Orizio Lumen of ②Her has arrived." The eyes of hundreds of royals instantly focused on the place where the rift had opened. "It really is Prince Orizio. I heard he finally lost his virginity. Now it seems the rumors were indeed not groundless. Everyone be careful. Don't forget to swallow linum." Linum can temporarily shield the user's thoughts from Orizio's probing. Looking at the panicked royals before him, Orizio smiled contemptuously. These fools really think swallowing linum will do any good. As it turned out, as Orizio's divine power kept increasing, ordinary linum had in fact long since lost its effect, though it did slightly reduce the noise in his mind, so it was not entirely worthless. With a smile on his face, Orizio walked forward slowly. "Orizio of ②Her, you look well." Under the gaze of countless royals, Orizio smiled faintly. "Why shouldn't I? After practicing abstinence for 2 centuries, I finally lost my virginity." The great hall instantly filled with silent astonishment. At the side, Queen Avaricious covered her mouth and laughed softly. "What wonderful news, my prince." Orizio turned his gaze toward Avaricious and smiled faintly. Of course, after saying that, he took his seat beside Saltus. Seeing this, Avaricious said to Saltus, "How is Princess Vicaria? How is Princess Vicaria? I just received word that she is about to give birth." Avaricious sighed, "My heavens, you are finally about to welcome your first imperial grandson." After saying that, Avaricious turned to Orizio again and asked, "When can you let us meet the woman who took your virginity? She should have arrived by now. I would like to introduce someone to you before that fairy enters the hall." Avaricious revealed a rare smile. She raised her hand in signal. Then the magnificently dressed ②Her walked out in dazzling splendor. "This is Avaricious ②Her of Pyros. I believe you are also well aware that she is the most beautiful child of our family and the fiancée we raised for you. We believe you will certainly like her." ②Her hurriedly bowed. "②Her greets you." However, he still wore his usual cold, false smile. He gazed at ②Her's black eyes as if looking at a stone, his glance careless. But even that casual glance instantly left ②Her standing there as though her soul had been stolen. She felt pain as though her soul were being burned. Saltus, unable to bear watching any longer, quickly spoke up to remind him, "What are you doing?" Orizio strode down the steps. Smiling, he replied, "She disturbed me." In the heavy atmosphere, Orizio still continued with a smile, "It seems my lover has finally arrived." In the next second, the voice of a palace attendant rang out again. "The guests from ②Her have arrived." The swaying pink flamingo feathers trembled gently. Gino, wearing a golden sash, seemed to enjoy the gaze of the royals as he walked in openly and proudly, and Lixiana followed closely behind. She too made a dazzling entrance, with elegant poise. Suddenly, a familiar voice fell into her ears. The girl looked up and found that Orizio had already come to her side. His overly intimate gaze, along with the hand around her waist, hotter than branding iron, made her face flush red. Orizio bent down and said gently, "It's time to show what you can do." At that moment, a blinding light fell upon Lixiana. Orizio instantly raised his hand to cover her eyes, and in this way introduced her to Sol. "Sol Lumen, son of the sun god, my father. Please allow me to introduce Lixiana, my first lover." Sol frowned slightly. "Take your hand away." Orizio slowly moved away the hand covering the girl's eyes. Under that excessively bright light, she frowned slightly, but she absolutely could not make a mistake in front of Emperor Sol. Lixiana slowly recited the greeting Gino had taught her. "Homage to Sol Lumen, son of the sun god. I am the fairy Lixiana, descendant of Circe, and I am willing to serve you." But Sol said nothing in response. Seeing this, the royals immediately began whispering among themselves. "She is nothing but a lowly descendant of the stone goddess." Saltus, unable to watch any longer, spoke on Sol's behalf. "Welcome, descendant of Circe." But Sol merely looked down at the woman standing before him and asked with a frown, "You say you are a descendant of Circe. Then what will you use to prove your identity?" Lixiana nervously swallowed. I can demonstrate silver filigree." At the side, Queen Avaricious finally could not hold back any longer and said with hidden malice beneath her smile, "She is merely a fairy, yet she wears the silver lily personally crafted by the Mage Lord. In any case, Let her display her ability. A streak of golden light flashed beside the girl. In an instant, a blazing furnace and tools appeared before her. Lixiana unexpectedly felt a strange excitement arise within her. You may begin. At Soul's command, the girl's slender fingers began to move as if performing magic. The thin silver wire twisted, bent, and was polished continuously at Lixiana's fingertips. Everyone held their breath, watching this lowly stone fairy display a marvelous skill. I have never seen a fairy use the flames of a bellows fire to craft silverware. I would like to see exactly what she learned in the dull cave of the Mage Lord. Before anyone knew it, a gorgeous rose slowly bloomed in the girl's hands. Great son of the sun god, though this gift is not precious, I offer this silver rose to you. The girl lowered her flushed face and held up the shining silver rose high. Suddenly, a sharp golden light flashed by, and the rose in her hand disappeared instantly. Descendant of Circe, I acknowledge you as Orizio's first lover. Since you have already proved your worth, then make haste and marry Terra. Seeing the satisfied smile appear on Queen Avaricia's face, Orizio's gaze turned slightly cold as he slowly spoke, as God wills. Soul's voice then resounded throughout the entire great hall. Oh, great descendants of the sun god, the power of the sun shall illuminate this tranquil night. The celebration begins now. Enjoy yourselves to your heart's content until the sun rises once more in the morning sky. Lixiana stared dazedly at the dazzling palace before her. The golden skin of the royals was illuminated ever more brightly, and among this crowd of shining people, the most eye-catching one was still the noble Prince Orizio. Looking at that lofty god, Lixiana blushed and gazed up at him affectionately. That height was so distant it was almost suffocating. A chill suddenly came from behind her. Lixiana turned around and saw a group of fairies walking toward her, led by none other than the queen's niece Terra, glowing all over with dazzling brilliance. An elegant smile hung on her face, but her gaze was fixed firmly on the silver lily hair ornament on Lixiana's head. A stone fairy, yet you're wearing the silver lily crafted by the Mage Lord. So that silver filigree skill was taught to you by the Mage Lord too? Hearing the expected reply, the woman smiled arrogantly. I am Terra, descendant of the royal Pyros family, and also the fiancé of the great son of the sun, Prince Orizio.
Ah.
Lixiana had never expected that the radiant woman standing before her would actually be Orizio's fiancé, and for a moment, she did not know what to say. She thought with some distress, should I say I'm pleased to meet you, or that I look forward to seeing you again? Arranging a wedding for this lady and His Highness Orizio should have been part of my duty, but I don't know what to say next. Looking at Lixiana, standing there blankly, Terra waved gracefully at the troubled Lixiana as if bestowing charity. There is no need for you to greet me. But the woman at her side leaned close to Terra and whispered, have you heard? Centaurs are famous for being lustful. Hearing this, Terra looked Lixiana up and down with amused interest. It seems your skills in bed must have been learned from the mage. At those words, Lixiana's face instantly flushed crimson, and her whole body trembled with anger. I don't know what you're talking about. Terra merely covered her mouth and laughed disdainfully. Otherwise, how could a lowly fairy like you have gotten Prince Orizio's first time? Come on, tell us. I can hardly wait to hear about your skills in bed. At that moment, Gino, who truly could not bear to listen any longer, tremblingly put down his wine glass. He timidly stepped forward. Lady Terra, you must be joking. The relationship between Lady Lixiana and the Great Mage is not what you think. What I want to tell you is that Lady Lixiana is only an apprentice. You're saying I'm joking? Terra's gaze turned cold. A flash of golden light shot by instantly. How arrogant. A tiny spirit dares say that I'm joking. Gino clutched his neck in pain. Then he fell to the ground with a thud. Seeing this, Lixiana ran over in panic. Are you alright? Then she turned her head and angrily said to Terra, what exactly are you doing? Don't tell me you intend to stand on that spirit side. Remember, this is not a place for the likes of you. Don't forget, it was you who took His Highness's virginity in my place. So answer me, just how did you climb into His Highness's bed? Hearing this, Lixiana calmly straightened her clothes. Her gaze also became increasingly firm. Then she slowly stood up. Are you curious about my skills in bed? First, I wait for him to ignite the desire inside my body. Then I gently twist my body in the crook of his arm and let out excited moans. He only truly begins after confirming that my body can endure it. Finally, Lixiana added with a smile, if you want to know more details, you can keep asking. Only after saying that did she suddenly come to her senses from her anger. Looking at Terra's expressionless face, Lixiana panicked at once. I didn't mean those words. I've ruined the entire plan. I had originally hoped this proud lady could become a partner who would satisfy His Highness. If that happened, I could spend the rest of my life freely creating silver ornaments. Just as she was regretting her earlier impulsiveness, a slender and smooth hand suddenly lifted. Immediately afterward, a slap was fiercely hurled at the girl. Lixiana was caught completely off guard and fell to the ground at once. The force was so great that even several pearls Nicole had carefully put on her scattered all over the floor. My lady, seeing this, Nicole was so anxious that tears streamed down her face. And the stunned Lixiana was still thinking, His Highness told me to do my best. I didn't mean to make things turn out like this. Nicole rushed over and held held Lixiana, who had fallen to the ground. "Are you alright? You arrogant woman. How dare you insult me? You're nothing but a little fairy who happened to get lucky," ②Her said through gritted teeth, ablaze with fury. Orizio strode over. "What is going on here?" The man still had a smile on his face, but everyone around could feel a suffocating terror. "Explain." Seeing this, ②Her thought Orizio was angry over Lixiana's behavior. Such things were not uncommon. The men of the royal family had always been like this, and no sun prince was willing to let a fairy he had been with cause him trouble. So ②Her revealed what she believed was an appropriate smile and said in a pitying tone, "It's all my fault. I should not have reacted when this foolish fairy provoked me. Please do not mind this insignificant dispute between women. You say she provoked you?" Orizio's gaze fell on Lixiana. "I understand, so you're also at fault." Before the girl could open her mouth to explain, Orizio lifted the corners of his lips. "I warned you." The man's gaze locked firmly onto the girl, as if only he and Lixiana remained in that space, his eyes full of heartache. He cautiously raised his hand and gently touched the swollen red place on Lixiana's cheek, saying in a low, tender voice, "I do not allow my things to be harmed, so tell me, do you want to return this slap with your own hand? Or would you rather I cut off the hand that struck you?" Hearing this, ②Her was so frightened that she collapsed to the ground with a thud, and her former arrogance finally vanished. Only then did she realize something was wrong, but it was already far too late. In order to calm the Sun Prince's anger, the human girl actually took the initiative to move close to him. She even pleaded with the man in a low voice, asking him to punish her somewhere else. Just moments ago, Lixiana had been slapped in public by her romantic rival. Orizio gazed at the wronged girl before him. For some reason, his heart ached. To vent the anger of the girl he loved, he actually wanted to cripple his fiancée's hand on the spot. Of course, Queen Avariscia would never allow such a thing to happen. "You must be joking. ②Her is merely jealous that this little fairy once had contact with you. Any woman would feel that kind of jealousy, so there is no need to make such a big deal out of it." The queen continued with a smile. "Although this is indeed tradition. But for a woman to watch another person take away something that should have belonged to her has never been an easy thing." Orizio let out a cold laugh and slowly said, "Something that belonged to her? Queen Avariscia, I am not anyone's possession." As soon as he finished speaking, the man's golden pupils suddenly burst forth with dazzling light. At that instant, the queen seemed to become completely lost in Orizio's unfathomable black eyes. She even nearly coughed up the linum she had just swallowed and quickly covered her mouth tightly. Only after quite a while did she barely recover, and with lingering fear she said, "Your father has already declared ②Her to be your fiancée. Marrying her is your responsibility." "Responsibility?" Orizio laughed scornfully. In an instant, the earring by the man's ear shone brilliantly, and a vivid beam of light appeared between Orizio and Avariscia. At that moment, a steady voice was heard. "Arguing over such a trivial matter is not like you. The one who came was Saltus." He raised his hand slightly, and golden divine power slowly overflowed from his palm. Lixiana's swollen little face instantly returned to normal. "That is enough, Orizio. From now on, let this matter go. Do not let the conflict continue to escalate. Please return to your seat." But Orizio merely shrugged indifferently. "But I still haven't heard my woman's answer." Hearing this, Queen Avariscia burst into laughter. "I know that little fairy got your body first, but I did not expect that she had also won your heart. It seems you stayed in Tesca's palace for too long. How dare you look down on Bovia's traditions? You want to cut off the hand of a noble goddess just because she slapped a humble fairy? Have you really taken yourself to be the judge of the gods?" In that instant, Lixiana saw Orizio's gaze turn into a black abyss that sent chills down one's spine. Orizio paid no attention to the queen's words. He merely smiled and softly said to the girl, "Lixiana, before I cut off her hand and give it to you." Seeing this, the queen secretly let out a sigh of relief, and there was even a trace of delight in her expression. Like a great saint, she said to Lixiana with false compassion, "Very well, since the prince wishes for you to decide, then tell us, what do you want?" Lixiana slowly raised her head. Looking into those elegant, captivating amber eyes that seemed to glow, she felt as if she could see the cruelty hidden deep within them. To achieve one's goal by any means necessary, even if it meant getting others killed, she had seen such eyes before. They were the same eyes Grazia had when she pushed her into the fire pit. At that moment, the girl had already made her decision. First, she had to leave this place safely. So Lixiana forcibly suppressed the fear in her heart. She cleared her throat softly. "Your Highness, The moment she began to speak, she drew everyone's attention. Lixiana gracefully and calmly raised her hand to smooth her hair. Then she said confidently, "Your Highness, cutting off her hand is meaningless. Nothing else matters. I only want you." As she spoke, she walked lightly toward Orizio. Under the brilliant sunlight, the silver lily on Lixiana's head sparkled. "In fact, this really is my fault. I actually told her how we spent that night together." Then she gently raised her hand. She placed it on Orizio's arm, hard as bronze and iron, and sweetly added, "So if you wish to punish someone, then please punish me." As if suddenly remembering something, the girl's face immediately flushed with a suspicious red, and she said timidly, "But I do not want to be punished here. I hope that when there are only the two of us, you can punish me then. Let this meaningless argument end here." As soon as her words fell, all the royal goddesses were shocked speechless. That fairy actually dared to act spoiled toward Prince Orizio. She even held onto his highness's arm, and he was the god of judgment of Bovias. Listening to the whispers around her, Lixiana said awkwardly to Orizio, "We should discuss these details in private." Orizio smiled, revealing a noble and dazzling smile like the sun. Completely unconcerned with the gazes around him, he slowly swept his eyes over the girl's little face. "Then we shall do as you say." Then he said to Avarisha, "As you just heard, my woman has no interest in narrow-minded revenge." Avarisha's heart trembled slightly, yet her face still wore the elegant smile honed through long years of training. But Orizio did not look at her again. He simply swept Lixiana into his arms, and several flashes of golden light passed around him. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared from where he stood, impatient to begin the sweet punishment that belonged only to the two of them. In the mortal world, the secret chamber of the arena was also Grazia's residence. The woman lounged lazily on the bed, surrounded by several muscular men, her extravagant lifestyle on full display. Suddenly, an orange-haired man burst through the door. "Long time no see, Grazia." Grazia, who had already recognized who it was, instantly sat up. "Apatus, it's me." The man responded with a soft laugh. Hearing this, Grazia's gaze immediately turned cold. "Watch how you address me. You know very well that I stopped using that name long ago." Do the people here know your real name?" It turned out that this man was Grazia's half-brother by the same father, Apatus man. The woman did not answer, only speaking impatiently. "I believe there is only one reason you came here. You are out of money again." "That's right. I heard you made a lot of money through the arena. I think you should know that I use this money to support the gladiators competing here. Of course, you and I are very different." As he spoke, Apatus flopped down onto the woman's large bed with a thud. "I'm very good at spending money, while you seem to enjoy the feeling of making it more. I already knew you would get rich, whether by being a high priest, a secret sponsor of gladiators, or warming the bed of certain high-ranking officials. Don't glare at me like that. I will keep this little secret for you. I won't tell anyone that you are the real Grazia Mandos, the priestess who was sacrificed in the sun ritual." Orizio left the New Moon Festival early with Lixiana in his arms and arrived at his secret garden. A trace of boyish cunning crossed the man's face. "Are you ready to accept my punishment?" Lixiana's little face instantly turned bright red, and thus the sweet punishment began. You would not want to see what came next, so we will skip it all. Meanwhile, at the New Moon Festival, Gino was still holding a large goblet and drinking until his face was flushed red. Nicole was anxious. "Lord Gino, if you keep drinking like this, you will get drunk." As she spoke, she stepped forward and snatched the goblet from Gino's hand. Gino gritted his teeth in anger. "Do you look down on me too?" Nicole explained in a low voice. "I only hope Lady Lixiana is alright, because when the new moon appeared, His Highness said he would." Hearing this, Gino frowned. What kind of person do you take His Highness for? Is he the sort of man who only cares about satisfying his own desires? Just then, an attendant hurriedly ran over. He leaned close to the tipsy Gino's ear and whispered something. Upon hearing it, Gino was so shocked that he sobered up on the spot. He jumped up at once. "What did you just say?" Nicole beside him looked utterly confused and instinctively asked, "What happened?" Gino did not answer and simply hurried off on his short legs. Seeing that something was wrong with Gino's expression, Nicole immediately followed. Very soon, the two arrived before that enormous golden gate. Gino shouted at the gate attendant, "Why are you still standing there? Hurry up and open the door." The moment his words fell, the great door opened in response. The two elves crossed through the garden with worried expressions. Not long after, they arrived at the place where Orizio and Lixiana were. Looking at the girl lying stiffly on the ground before them, Gino immediately cast a healing spell with a raise of his hand, all the while cursing, "How could you do this? I know it is hard to control yourself, but this is too much." Hearing this, Orizio rarely showed a bit of embarrassment and awkwardly touched his cheek. This was Lixiana's own wish. "I merely did as she wanted." Gino was completely speechless, inwardly ranting furiously, to hell with what she wanted. He then used every method he had and focused on treating Lixiana, but she did not improve in the slightest. "My healing magic has failed." Gino cried out in shock. Seeing this, Orizio was already filled with worry inside, though none of it showed on his face. He only calmly instructed the tearful Nicole beside him, "Little fairy, go and find Prince Saltus." Meanwhile, in Tara's bedchamber, a spectacle was brewing. The woman's crystalline tears fell onto the marble floor. Suddenly, with a bang, a sound exploded in Tara's grief-stricken room. The queen burst through the door in a fury. Stepping in on high heels, she walked straight toward Tara and, without another word, raised her hand and slapped her across the face. Tara was struck so hard by the slap that she was knocked to the ground. Her eyes widened, and her whole body trembled violently. The usually composed queen could no longer be bothered to maintain her elegance. She furiously berated Tara. "You foolish girl, adorned in jewels from head to toe, yet you lost to a lowly fairy. Now put away your emotions and go out at once to apologize to that little fairy. But the always proud ②Her refused to bow her head. I am a noble goddess and also a member of the royal family. I absolutely cannot humble myself before a little fairy.
Why not?
You are the goddess who personally handed the jewel from your own crown to someone else. Under the queen's murderous gaze, ②Her froze in place from fright. Then the queen raised her hand and lightly brushed ②Her's face with her slender fingertips as she continued her warning. Are you trying to force me to deal with you and your family once and for all myself? I worked so hard to raise you to this position. How dare you betray me? Avaricious stared fixedly at ②Her. I can turn a blind eye to your loss of chastity, but how dare you call a doctor to examine this little bastard that has not even been born yet? My stomach hurt terribly. I was afraid I would lose the child. Hearing this only made the queen more furious. She violently shoved ②Her to the ground. The child in your belly is a bastard. It would be better if it did not exist at all. As she spoke, Avaricia put that gentle mask back on again. ②Her, the only reason you are still alive is because I believe you still have value.
So do as I say.
Remember, without me, you would have died long ago. Now it is your turn to repay the debt. With eyes gleaming like a venomous serpent's, Avaricia stared at ②Her's pretty cheek, which had somehow already completely recovered. Why are you still sitting there? Get up immediately. I can dispose of you and your family at any time. If you want to live, marrying Prince Orizio is your only choice. With a miserable expression, ②Her forced herself to take a step forward, and Avaricia's icy voice continued. I do not care whether you go kiss that fairy's feet. Your family's fate is in your hands. Whether they continue to live or vanish completely from history depends entirely on your choice. When Lixiana opened her eyes again, a lazy yet pleasant voice sounded by her ear. Is your name Lixiana? Lixiana came back to her senses and looked at the beautiful man before her. Only then did she realize that he was Prince Saltus, and she hurriedly rose to bow. Yet in her mind appeared, uncontrollably, Orizio, who is equally breathtakingly beautiful. Saltus merely said coldly, there is no need for you to bow to me. You are actually just a mortal. Saltus raised a hand and pressed at his temple with a slight headache. I suggest that from now on, you stay away from Orizio's bed. After saying that, he turned and left. Lixiana stared blankly in the direction where Saltus had disappeared. Nicole at her side hurried forward in panic and asked worriedly, Lady Lixiana, are you alright? I was really so afraid. I never thought His Highness would possess you in the palace. But Lixiana looked at the crying Nicole. Yet inside, she grew more and more uneasy. What should I do, Nicole? Prince Saltus has discovered that I am immortal. This is bad. Lixiana's human identity has been exposed. Saltus awakened the unconscious Lixiana, but he also discovered that the girl was human. So he immediately went to find Orizio. He questioned whether Orizio had gone mad to deceive the sun god's soul for the sake of a human. Orizio, sitting in the darkness, was silent for a while, then suddenly laughed and answered that he had not deceived soul. Saltus pressed further. Then does the queen know? Orizio replied calmly, whether she knows or not is not important. The moment he heard that, Saltus exploded in anger. That human girl should already have died. Why are you defying heaven? Did you save her only to satisfy your own desires? Under the moonlight, Orizio's voice slowly rang out. Dear brother, she is my human sacrifice, and also my first woman. And now, she completely belongs to me, so please do not speak again of what belongs to me. Saltus's gaze turned slightly cold. You must get rid of her as soon as possible.
Why?
Orizio tilted his head slightly, and in the darkness his earring gleamed. As you can see, my essence has already seeped into her body. She is now immortal. Saltus was left speechless by Orizio's words and could only warn him coldly. Do not forget, you are the Sun Prince, the god of judgment of heaven, and an omnipotent god. Orizio said with a face full of disdain, I do not want any of that at all, but that is your fate. I hope you will take my advice to heart, unless you intend to let Caligo rule Bovias. Hearing this, Orizio only smiled faintly. It does not matter. If something really happens, I will burn everything to ashes. Saltus was so angry that his eyes turned red. Do you truly want to confront Soul head-on? Orizio did not deny it. If you want to keep Leinichua, I can refrain from burning it. The aura around Saltus instantly turned cold. I have heard enough of your arrogance. As the Sun Prince, you must be responsible for your people. My people? Orizio repeated Saltus's words with a low laugh, but his voice was frighteningly cold. Then he slowly rose and calmly drew open the curtain. Let us go. The festival has only just begun. Brilliant fireworks bloomed across the night sky, scattering and falling like gemstones. Lixiana gazed blankly into the distance, as if she had completely sunk into the beautiful scenery before her. Nicole observed Lixiana's expression and spoke cautiously. Look, the drink of the gods. Nicole was holding a huge golden jar. Lixiana looked at the jar full of red liquid and was immediately startled. Her first reaction was to refuse. Nicole frowned with a pout and said regretfully, if you don't take a sip first, then I can't taste it either. Then let's each have a cup. What do you think? In the end, Lixiana could not bear to shatter the hope in Nicole's eyes, so she took a symbolic sip. Nicole immediately followed and eagerly gulped down a big mouthful as well. The next second, Nicole's green pupils instantly turned starry. Oh my god, I've never had anything this delicious in my life. It tastes amazing. Then let's have another cup, okay? Just like that, the two of them drank more and more until they could no longer stop, and soon both were thoroughly intoxicated. Gino came to Lixiana's residence. He was even carrying Papyrus, a human girl's favorite. He paced back and forth at the door, full of inner turmoil. Should he ask if she was alright? Even a fool would know she couldn't possibly be alright. No matter how one looked at it, His Highness Orizio had gone too far this time. Suddenly, while Gino was still lingering outside the door, a burst of giggling laughter reached his ears. Did I hear laughter? Could it be that Lady Lixiana finally went mad after all? Gino's face instantly turned ashen. He pulled the door open and shouted, "Lady Lixiana." Gino froze on the spot. Before him were actually two drunkards, and Nicole also saw Gino and staggered toward him. "Isn't this Lord Gino? Our lovely attendant. You seem to have grown taller. Would you like to have a drink with us?" Gino was completely dumbfounded. He quickly pounced toward the golden jar at the side. What exactly had they been drinking? This smell. Isn't this flower nectar? A whole golden jar of this amount would be enough to get even a god drunk. They actually drank an entire jar? It's Gino. Did you bring me my favorite papyrus? Lixiana staggered over to Gino. She reached out her hand toward Gino. After getting the papyrus, she hugged the leaves like a child and rubbed them against her face. Hee, this is papyrus. Gino stared blankly at the surroundings, simply unable to believe that everything before his eyes was real. He then hurriedly locked the door and used a simple spell to create a soundproof wall, because in a place like this, nothing was more dangerous than a drunk human woman. Gino was on the verge of tears, but the next second his expression changed abruptly, as if he had suddenly seen a savior. The one who came was actually Orizio. As Tara left with a miserable expression, the queen reclined sideways on a light couch, elegantly pinching a grape between her fingers. She softly ordered the attendant beside her. "The fairies here know too much. Kill them all." Very soon, a commotion broke out in the room. Pleas and screams intertwined, filling the entire space amid the cheerful festival music. The queen looked at the floor stained with the blood of the maids, and said softly to the attendant beside her, "Orizio is too arrogant. He dares to scorn me, the Queen of Bovias. He dares to scorn me, the Queen of Bovias." It seems Orizio has become even stronger. I need denser linum. Suddenly, a wisp of blue light as sharp as a blade flew from somewhere and stopped in front of Avarisha. She, who had been lying down, suddenly sat upright. Her face, which had been expressionless all this time, changed instantly. "Caligo, is that you? My son, how have you been? Are you well?" "I'm fine." As the words fell, the blue light suddenly churned violently. The queen's expression instantly shattered. "There isn't much time left. I will do everything I can to bring you back to heaven." The blue light flickered, transmitting a faint voice. "If that happens, then I won't be safe.
You need not worry about that.
Bovias will certainly belong to you." Avarisha looked at the splendid fireworks in the distance and gave a cold smile. "Soon, we will reveal the truth to the whole world. Orizio is a monster." At this moment, at the New Moon Festival celebration, the appearance of Orizio and Saltus made the festive atmosphere even more heated. They were seated in the places of honor, looking down with utter boredom. In order to see the dazzling sun princes, the banquet was crowded with fairies craning their necks to look, yet the sun princes were not interested in the slightest. Hearing that suddenly piercing voice, Orizio slowly tilted his head. A middle-aged man could be seen trembling as he said, "I am Basiconim of the Pyros family. I have come to ask forgiveness for my daughter Tara's behavior." "So, you are her father." But that trace of a smile only made Basiconim even more frightened, so he explained uneasily, "She is still young and not mature enough." Seeing this, Saltus beside him spoke, "Accept his apology. There is no need to make an enemy of the Pyros family." "Accept his apology?" Orizio asked back with a smile, but still did not state his position. He merely said kindly to Basiconim, "Go and tell your daughter. Tell her that if she is willing to be my concubine, she may come to me at any time." Hearing this, Basiconim's face turned deathly pale in an instant. "You mean a concubine?" It should be known that Tara was of the royal family. She came from a pure-blood family and was one of the noblest branches of the Pyros family. No one in that family had ever become a concubine. Because of Orizio's single remark, an uproar immediately rose among the surrounding royals. But he did not care at all, and still said with a smile, "You should be quite willing to sell your daughter, shouldn't you? Stop pretending to be a doting father. I have no interest in your clumsy performance." Basiconim tried hard to suppress his shocked expression, and said in panic, "I will never sell my daughter to anyone." In that case, Orizio could not be bothered to keep pretending. He rose impatiently from his seat. "How boring. Then go find her another husband." Saltus at the side finally could not bear it anymore and hurriedly reminded him, "What exactly are you thinking?" Hearing this, Orizio smiled faintly. "Obviously, I am protecting my woman." An inexplicable tension began to spread through the hall. Yet Orizio, the very instigator, walked straight out as if nothing had happened. Suddenly, he stopped and showed the crowd a dreamlike smile. Then, I wish you all an enjoyable time. Brilliant fireworks bloomed splendidly in the night sky in the distance. In the blink of an eye, Orizio arrived at Lixiana's door. After glancing at the crude soundproofing spell on the door, he thought disdainfully, "This is what you call a soundproofing spell?" Then he walked straight in. Very soon, he stopped in confusion as well. He saw Nicole sprawled all over the floor, fast asleep and completely unconscious. At this moment, the foolish giggling of a woman came from beside his ear. Orizio looked up and narrowed his eyes slightly, calling uncertainly, "Lixiana?" Hearing someone call her name, the drunken Lixiana obediently turned around, and the moment she saw it was Orizio, her little face immediately lit up with a radiant smile. "It's your highness." Looking at the girl before him, drunk yet exceptionally charming, Orizio was stunned for a moment, and a flush quickly rose to his face before he could recover. Lixiana had already thrown herself at him, and Orizio instinctively reached out and caught her. It was the first time his beloved had taken the initiative to throw herself into his arms. The man secretly rejoiced in his heart, but outwardly remained composed. "I have no interest in listening to your drunken nonsense." "Drunken nonsense? But I'm not drunk at all." The girl chattered on, as if complaining. Suddenly, her legs gave way, and she nearly fell. Orizio reacted quickly and supported her slender arm. Lixiana let out a soft cry of pain. "Oh, it hurts so much. There's another bruise now, and the previous bruises haven't even healed yet." With tears in her eyes, the girl shook off Orizio's large hand and began to sob. "I don't like you because when you're around, I can't do anything." Of course. Orizio went along with her words, acting as though he had heard none of Lixiana's accusations, and domineeringly stepped forward to pull the girl into his arms. Looking at the especially adorable Lixiana after getting drunk, he secretly laughed to himself. "How interesting. I want to hear more." At the same time, his large hand gently stroked the girl's back, waiting for Lixiana's emotions to gradually calm down. Orizio took the opportunity to lift the girl and place her sideways across his lap. With a soft laugh, he asked, "Are you ready to tell me more?" Orizio slowly poured a cup of nectar wine and handed it to the girl, who was already completely drunk.
Tell me.
Lixiana obediently took the wine cup. Gulp, gulp. She drank it down in one breath. Although Orizio was not particularly interested in what the girl might say, as long as he could know what Lixiana was thinking, he was already fully satisfied. The girl who had drunk the wine let out a burp. Then she began to chatter away. "The slave owner beat me whenever he wanted. I was beaten every day. Haha. Sometimes he beat me because I wove the basket too tightly, and sometimes he beat me because I wove it too loosely. I remember that at the time I was only 9 years old." Lixiana went on and on about her miserable childhood. These were all parts of her past that Orizio had never known. Although it pained him to hear them, he was still somewhat puzzled why everything she kept repeating was about being beaten. After talking for a long time, Lixiana gave a bitter laugh, rubbed the corners of her reddened eyes, and asked, "Why didn't you come save me?" Orizio looked innocently at the girl before him, who sounded so self-righteous. "You are a god, a sun prince, yet you never appeared when I needed you most. Then why did you happen to save me when I wanted to die? I was always looking for you. Every time those monsters kicked me down and tore my clothes to pieces, I was calling out to you. Have you ever truly cared about people like me who need help?" At this moment, Lixiana's emotions completely surged forth. Her little fists thumped again and again against Orizio's chest. "I'm certain that at that time, you must have been busy listening to the prayers of the greedy. You simply do not care about those cries of pain." As she said this, the girl cried more and more sorrowfully, sobbing as she collapsed into the man's arms. Faced with Lixiana's almost unreasonable complaints, Orizio let out a soft sigh. "You're drunk." Lixiana continued choking with sobs as she said, "You only appeared when I was about to be burned to death. And then what did you do? You said that I was yours, and that I would live forever. How dare you call yourself a god?" Lixiana, overcome by drunkenness, shakily raised her hand and pointed at Orizio. The man grabbed the girl's little hand that was waving around wildly and drew her into his arms once more. In a low and gentle voice, he asked, "So then?" The girl had not yet reacted and simply stared straight at that captivating face, saying instinctively, "What did you say?" Orizio spoke indulgently, "Then what do you want from me?" "Tell me. Whatever it is that you want, I will give it to you." Hearing this, Lixiana froze at once. Turning away awkwardly, she said, "What is the point of saying such things now? You gave me immortality, but I feel that I might as well have died. Your essence flows in my body." At this point, Lixiana paused, as if suddenly realizing something. She suddenly turned around and shouted, "Wait a minute, really? Will you really give me anything I want?"
Gods do not lie.
"What exactly does she want from me?" Orizio became curious once again. Lixiana could be seen taking a deep breath. Closing her eyes, she shouted loudly, "I want freedom." The moment these words came out, Orizio even thought he had misheard. "Why can't I be free like everyone else? Please, if this goes on, I really will wither away and die." Lixiana clutched Orizio's clothes tightly and sobbed like a child. "I don't want to stay dried up like this forever." Orizio looked utterly bewildered. "I thought I had already given you a great deal, but I want to enjoy life. I don't want to live like a doll." As these words fell, Orizio suddenly fell silent. Freedom? I could give her the whole world. Yet what she wanted was only freedom. I had thought she would want gold, land, or glory, or even revenge on those who had hurt her, but what she wanted was merely freedom. Thinking of this, Orizio smiled. Then, as you wish. Hearing this, Lixiana froze, blinking those round eyes as she stared unblinkingly at Orizio. As though a beautiful dream had finally come true, she revealed a satisfied smile. When I'm free, I'll run into the forest, a forest full of trees. I'll live in a tiny farmhouse and pick basket after basket of wild strawberries. I also want to go see the sea. The vast ocean will make me feel truly free. The sea I once saw was really beautiful. As she spoke, an overwhelming wave of sleepiness suddenly came over her. Lixiana rubbed her eyes, but in the end she could not hold on. She collapsed onto Orizio's lap. The man quietly looked down at the girl with flushed cheeks, then suddenly let out a low laugh. So you want me to give you the sea? With her eyes closed, Lixiana instinctively shook her head. What would be the point of owning an ocean? I only want to quietly enjoy it. Looking at the girl who had long since fallen fast asleep, Orizio let out a soft sigh and gently stroked Lixiana's long golden hair. He thought to himself in secret, this is the first time in my life that I have felt a crack appear in my disguise. It was a rather conspicuous crack, like a tiny flaw suddenly appearing on a finely crafted piece of porcelain. Watching the girl he loved cry bitterly in his arms, feeling wronged, even the omnipotent Prince of the Sun was equally helpless. He could only wait until Lixiana fell asleep before gently lifting her up, then carefully place her on the bed. Orizio quietly gazed at the sleeping girl for a while, then let out another soft sigh. Skillfully, he raised a hand to smooth her hair. Yet in his mind, Lixiana's absurd question kept echoing again and again. The man silently walked to the couch at the side and sat down. Then, he casually picked up the wine glass the girl had drunk from, brought it close to his lips, and said in a low voice, when you prayed to the sun god Sol, how could I possibly have heard your prayer? I may be the Prince of the Sun, but I am only the ruler of Tesca, the land of shadows. It is very difficult for me to hear the prayers of the desperate. My existence is merely to maintain the balance of Bovias. My duty is to kill more people. For more than 20 centuries, my hands have long been stained with blood. Do you know? Some people even regard me as the god of death. At that thought, Orizio suddenly rose to his feet, his gaze sweeping toward a nearby corner as he spoke coldly. Gino, wake up. As soon as those words were spoken, Gino instantly stood up and yawned shakily. My whole body hurts. Orizio ignored him and simply ordered directly, I want you to go to Aratigo. Gino's eyes widened at once. Orizio crossed his arms over his chest. I want to see what kind of life Lixiana has really been living in the human world. Do you want me to go right now? Faced with Orizio's sudden command, Gino was truly at a loss. With rare patience, Orizio explained, since I cannot understand what she is thinking, then go gather the information I need for me. The lives of mortals are much shorter than you imagine. Some people may die during the time you spend delaying.
So leave at once, right now.
Hearing this, Gino immediately panicked. What is wrong with you exactly? Could it be that you also want to become a god of judgment in the human world? Don't tell me you're doing this because of what Lady Lixiana said after drinking. All slaves have experienced the same kind of suffering she did. Facing Gino, who was trembling all over with anxiety, Orizio said calmly, but Lixiana is no longer a slave. In fact, she now belongs to me. I cannot stand by and watch my person suffer. Gino was struck head-on by this sudden display of affection and could not agree with Orizio's emotional decision at all. I don't know what you are talking about. Please think it over carefully once more. It has already been a full 1,000 years since the last time a god interfered in human affairs. Even His Majesty's soul has never intervened in the affairs of the human world. Everyone will think this is a provocation against your father. Killing a few humans will not make Lady Lixiana's nightmares disappear. Rather than kill them, it would be better to destroy them first and infect them with disease. What I mean is, there are actually many ways to punish them. Gino urged earnestly, but Orizio turned a deaf ear and merely exchanged a glance with Gino before saying lightly, go quickly and come back quickly. Gino instantly let out a cry of pain. He no longer dared argue and could only say, you are leaving me no choice. The affairs of the Heavenly Palace are like knots tangled in thread. Once they are destroyed, they can never be untied again. Please remember that. Very soon, Gino's body was enveloped in blue divine power. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared from before Orizio. The fireworks set off in the distance for the celebration still filled the night sky, and Orizio merely watched them quietly. If it is still not too late now, I want to become the god you have always been searching for. The arena on the outskirts of Aratigo. Grazia was meeting with a merchant who sold poison. She intended to buy a rare poison from him. Seeing that the merchant was somewhat hesitant, Grazia revealed a gentle smile. Don't worry, you won't be hurt. I only plan to use it when my slave loses control. My lady, I know you would never hurt me. Hearing this, Grazia seemed quite satisfied. You are very clever. Now name your price. A maidservant rushed in a panic. Mistress, something has happened. Lord Apatis is making trouble in the tavern again. Is that so? Then that really is wonderful. After Grazia learned that Apatis had killed someone during an argument, she stood up and said to the maidservant, Go pass on my message. I cannot be bothered to care what that bastard has done. Wait until that merchant delivers the poison I want. I want you to accept it in Apatis's name. Then, very soon, we will use that poison on him himself. Give another sum of money to those people who love to gossip, and have them spread every bad thing Apatis has ever done everywhere. Tell them he is addicted to drugs, and that he is also the son of Eunuchus Mandos, the high priest of Aratigo. I need to rest. After the attendants withdrew, Grazia turned and walked outside instead, thinking of that damned Apatis, who was clearly still completely unaware of his own situation. The woman silently clenched her fists. I managed this arena, not to clean up that bastard's mess. If I wished, I could stab him to death with my own hands right now. Very soon, Grazia arrived at a magnificently decorated terrace. When she appeared, the slaves fighting in the arena all stopped one after another. They greedily stared at the beautiful and captivating Grazia. The woman wore a smile as warm as the spring breeze and said coquettishly to the slaves below, I wonder who will have the good fortune to spend the night with me tonight. Who will become that lucky gladiator? Spend this wonderful night with me, Stilla. Inside the palace of Bovias, Lysiana laboriously lifted her heavy eyelids. Waking up after getting drunk for the first time, she rubbed her head, which felt as though it were about to split apart. But she was suddenly startled by the shadowy light beside her and sat up at once. You are finally awake. How long have you been here? Lysiana rolled her purple eyes and swept her gaze over the utterly messy room. What on earth happened here? My dear Lysiana, don't you remember? Orizio gave a light laugh. What exactly happened last night? Hearing this, the fragmented memories of last night suddenly flooded Lysiana's mind. They were all unbearably embarrassing scenes. The girl's face flushed red all at once. Stammering, she said, I can explain. Seeing Lysiana like this, Orizio smiled at her indulgently. He raised his hand, and in the blink of an eye used divine power to conjure a roll of glittering silver wire. He handed it to Lysiana and said gently, have a good rest today. In your current physical condition, you are not suited to take part in the festival celebration. Go, and do whatever you like to your heart's content. After saying that, Orizio turned into a beam of light and disappeared in an instant. Lysiana looked blankly at the silver wire in her hand. Orizio had always opposed her making such silver filigree work and had even confiscated her materials before. Thinking of this, her feelings suddenly became complicated. Suddenly, a rustling sound came from the corner, and Lysiana was instantly startled. I'm sorry, my lady. All of this is because of me. A sniffling Nicole crawled out from the corner. I don't know where His Highness suddenly came from either. I had no choice but to hide until he left. Seeing Nicole's worried face, Lysiana finally realized in despair that none of this had been a dream. The girl lifelessly grabbed at her hair. I don't remember a single thing from last night. What if I really made some serious mistake? I can still remember a few scattered fragments. Thinking of this, Lysiana dazedly patted her own cheeks. Just then, the voice of an attendant came from afar. A guest wishes to see you. Who could be coming to see me? Lysiana looked full of confusion, and Nicole was equally baffled. My lady, I'll go take a look. So she walked toward the door, and very soon saw the so-called guest. They were in fact a group of lofty noble ladies of the royal family. Nicole asked in some surprise, Ladies, what has brought you to our humble residence? Such arrogant words had actually come from the mouth of a little fairy. The brown-haired woman leading them spoke in the haughty tone unique to royalty. After last night, we believe it is only proper to express our respect to His Highness's beloved. Hearing this, Nicole immediately panicked. Please give me 1 minute. After saying that, she hurriedly turned and ran back behind the door. Then she forcefully shut the door and stood panting against it. Seeing this, Lysiana asked with a bewildered expression, What is it? Nicole seemed not even to have time to answer. Without another word, she pushed Lysiana into the washroom. I have to change your clothes immediately. There isn't any time to waste. The royal ladies of Bovias have come to see you. You absolutely must meet them in your best state. Starting now, please hold this book of poetry first. Lysiana, who still had not reacted, remained utterly confused. Nicole frantically dressed her up, and in the end even pinned in a silver lily made by the great magician. Very soon, the heavy door slowly opened, and Lysiana appeared before that group of royal women with a deeply troubled expression. The royal ladies curiously examined the girl's slender body and began whispering among themselves. Compared to our god, she looks far too fragile, almost like a child. It's hard to believe that Prince Orizio would choose her as the object of his first night. At that moment, the brown-haired royal woman asked, Is that a collection of poems written by Fandaros? Have you really read it? Faced with this sudden question, Lysiana showed a somewhat unnatural smile, while Nicole worried for her in secret at the side. When no answer came for a long time, the royal woman turned to look around instead. After seeing a huge furnace, she was immediately drawn to it and became curious about what it was. It's nothing. Nicole panicked and hurried forward, wanting to put things away. But at that moment, Lysiana suddenly stood up gracefully and said with confidence, Those are all tools I use to make silver ornaments. You actually know how to work with silverware? So the rumors are true? Did you really make a silver rose for His Majesty the King? The royal ladies were all shocked beyond measure. That's right. Lysiana put down the book of poetry and said calmly, Everything I know was learned from my teacher. the great magician. It is indeed difficult work, but without us, ladies, you would have no jewelry to wear. As soon as those words fell, the entire place erupted, yet no one spoke up to refute Lixiana. Suddenly, the brown-haired woman let out a cry of surprise. Could the ornament you are wearing be a silver lily personally made by the great magician? Would you like me to make one for you too? Lixiana had already used her sure-kill move of sincerity. Would you like me to make a piece of jewelry for you? A pink-haired woman immediately rushed out first. It would be my honor. And so, the royal women who loved beauty all gathered around Lixiana, hoping that the girl could make some silver ornaments for them as well. After Lixiana gladly agreed, she immediately picked up her tools and began making them. Meanwhile, the royal women sat down on the sofa nearby and chatted leisurely. Ever since the great magician stopped making silver ornaments, it has become harder and harder to obtain new pieces. The fact that he actually made this girl his successor is truly unbelievable. Watching the petite Lixiana make silver ornaments in an orderly manner, the royal ladies could not help clicking their tongues in amazement. At this moment, Lixiana was staring intently and excitedly at the silver wire glowing bright in the bellows flame. Can you give me a black pearl? As Lixiana continuously wiped the sweat from her face, a lifelike dolphin ornament was born just like that. Lixiana handed the dolphin ornament to the brown-haired royal woman. You seem to like pearls very much, so I made you a dolphin bracelet. I know dolphins symbolize the god Bacchus. Do you think it suits your taste? The brown-haired woman wearing the pearl necklace froze, as if she had been completely enchanted by that adorable dolphin, and murmured in a daze, I have never seen such a beautiful, such exquisite ornament. In a certain palace somewhere in Bovias, a furious roar suddenly rang out. ②Her, the one who had come was none other than Basiconim, ②Her's father. At this moment, he stormed angrily into his daughter's bedchamber. What exactly are you planning to do? The queen has already rewarded a large portion of our land to another royal house. Do you want us to survive like beggars on the streets of Bovias? Hearing this, ②Her immediately panicked and abruptly recalled the queen's previous threat. Remember, your family's fate is in your hands, whether they continue to live. ②Her desperately suppressed the panic in her heart and spoke with a trembling voice. Please help me call mother here. Your mother cannot possibly persuade her sister Avarisha. Ever since that incident happened, your mother has already fallen ill and cannot get out of bed at all. At this point, Basiconim roughly grabbed ②Her and pulled her up. Go at once. I don't care whether you go beg Prince Orizio or beg that little fairy at his side to forgive you. Accept anything he says, even if it means only becoming his concubine. As soon as those words fell, ②Her was immediately horrified, and her body swayed unsteadily. Become a concubine? Never has any royal family member ever become someone else's concubine. I may not possess great power, but I am still a goddess. ②Her bit down on her teeth fiercely. She roared at Basiconim. I am a member of the mighty Pyros family of Bovias. Hearing this, Basiconim gave a disdainful cold laugh. Surely you don't still not know that you are about to be abandoned by the family? Queen Avarisha is a cruel goddess. I don't know what she once promised your mother, but your paternal family will very likely be completely destroyed because of you. His Highness Orizio said that he is willing to take you as a concubine. So go, and think of every possible way to save yourself first. After saying this, Basiconim turned and left without the slightest hesitation. ②Her's expression changed abruptly. Subconsciously, she covered her stomach. Then with a thud, she collapsed to the floor. Have all the efforts I made to become the wife of the Prince of the Sun been for nothing? I never imagined that that brief loss of control in the royal garden would lead to such serious consequences. She thought of how her mother had once planned for her, saying the child could be pinned on Caligo anyway, since everyone knew he flirted everywhere. But that plan did not succeed, because Caligo was exiled to the human world. It was Queen Avarisha who wanted me to marry Prince Orizio as soon as possible. To me, whether I married Caligo or Orizio actually made no difference. At that thought, ②Her suddenly stood up. Her gaze also became incomparably resolute in an instant. All she wanted was for her child to become a rightful heir. She did not believe that Orizio, who was half human and half god, would refuse a pure-blood woman like her. In order to block Orizio's mind reading and also to slow the child's growth, ②Her decisively took out the potent linum the queen had given her and swallowed it in one gulp. Then she clenched her teeth and thought hatefully, how dare they look down on me? Orizio is the god of judgment, but at the end of the day, he is only a demigod. Just wait and see. I will let the whole world know that Prince Orizio is mine, a radigo in the human world. The pedestrians on the street all turned their heads to look at the suspicious old man wrapped in a black cloak. And Gino, disguised as an old man, was practically going mad. I know this is a slum, but this stench is truly unbearable. I've been investigating the slave auction house all this time, yet so far I have found nothing. Gino complained wildly in his heart and silently raised his head to the sky. Don't you think your demands of me are far too high? Just then, a voice came from behind Gino. Are you looking for something? Gino quickly turned around and saw a man with a scar on his face. How long have you worked in the slave market? Are you talking to me? The scarred man said somewhat uncertainly. Let me think. I've already been here for almost 30 years. Hearing this, Gino generously threw out a gold bar. "I have something to ask you." At this, the scarred man flirtatiously shot Gino a greasy wink from the mouth of a slave owner. "You can usually only ask one thing." As he spoke, he stuffed the gold bar into his clothes with a grinning face. "If you want to get rid of a few disobedient slaves, then you've definitely come to the right place. You look like an important person. As long as you say the word, I can help you solve the problem." Gino frowned. "That is not what I want to ask. What I want to know is this. There used to be a slave girl called Lishiana who once stayed here." "You mean Lishiana?" The scarred man touched the back of his head, somewhat surprised. "Are you talking about the girl with purple eyes and golden hair?" Hearing this, Gino's heart jolted violently. "At last, I have found the place." The scarred man in front of him was still speaking smugly. "Of course I remember her. She was as valuable as her mother. I can't go into too much detail, because this involves an important figure in Aratigo." Though the scarred man said this, his hand had already stretched out, looking at the scarred man deliberately, whetting his appetite. Gino directly tossed him another piece of gold. Then he asked, "You mean an important figure in Aratigo?" Only after getting the gold did the scarred man begin smiling broadly as he spoke. "There are rumors that that slave girl was the illegitimate daughter of some important figure. Her mother was not only beautiful, but also carried a bit of divine power. That was why they were able to survive in the slums. Because with High Priest Eunuchus around, who would dare lay a hand on a former divine maiden who had once served the High Priest?" The scarred man took a wrinkled apple from his clothes and said while gnawing on it, "And the reason Lishiana became even more famous was because one day, the goddess Grazia personally came here and promoted Lishiana to divine maiden." Gino was suddenly shaken. The scarred man continued, "But that was not anything worth being happy about." Then he turned his head and shouted at a man carrying a sack, "Hey, come over here. I just happened to be telling this gentleman how Lishiana tricked you." No sooner had he spoken than the man in the distance immediately burst into curses. "Even now, whenever I think of her, my blood still boils. I beat her and tied her up in the pigsty. How exactly did she escape? Didn't I already tell you to get her into my hands as soon as possible?" Watching the disgusting faces of the men as they laughed loudly, Gino tightened his grip on the cane in his hand. He was so angry, he almost ground his teeth to pieces. At that moment, he finally understood why Orizio had sent him here. If the one who had come this time were Orizio, he would certainly have burned the whole of Aratigo to ashes. After finishing their teasing, the scarred man finally remembered that Gino was still there, so he asked, "Why do you want to know about that thing?" Before he could finish speaking, the scarred man suddenly froze. A blue magic circle appeared beneath Gino's feet, and before they had time to react, half of the two men's bodies had already been buried underground. No matter how they struggled or cried for help, it was useless. Gino suddenly cast off his disguise. He flashed onto a nearby wall and spat. "Scum like you do not deserve to die quickly. Just wait for death. Slowly like this. I really cannot believe Lady Lishiana actually grew up in a place like this." Gino thought to himself as he bent down and looked around below. Not far away crouched a mother and daughter, so hungry they could barely walk. Suddenly, with a thud, the child's excited cheer rang out. The mud turned into bread. Gino smiled faintly. "I believe His Highness will understand. No matter what, turning a blind eye to a child who is about to starve to death is certainly not God's will. Should I go find this so-called High Priest of Aratigo?" The palace of Bovias was full of bustle. The festive atmosphere was also growing stronger and stronger. Even Prince Saltus's wife, Princess Vicaria, had also come with her firstborn son, who had only recently been born. After paying respects to Sol had Vicaria step forward. He took his eldest grandson into his arms and also asked after Vicaria along the way. And Saltus also walked over to Vicaria's side. "Thank you for giving birth to our son." "It's nothing." At this warm moment, Queen Avaricia, wearing an elegant smile, said to Sol, "This child, like his parents, has golden hair. Isn't he adorable?" Then Prince Orizio, "Could you also tell us when that eagerly anticipated wedding will take place?" Under Avaricia's subtle urging, Sol spoke and summoned Orizio over to ask him, "Why not tell us about the arrangements for your wedding with Terra?" Orizio said with a smile. Looking at Orizio answering so obediently, Avaricia was startled inwardly. Why had he agreed so readily? So the queen smiled gracefully and said to Orizio, "It seems that you have finally thought things through. Terra cared a great deal about this." Orizio let out a soft laugh. Yet for some reason it made people feel a chill run down their spines. He spoke casually. "I have already spoken with her father, and he is also very worried about his daughter." At this, Avaricia immediately broke into a cold sweat and asked in return, "Her father? You mean Basiconum? He came to visit me. He seemed like a man with very little patience." Orizio said calmly, "We have already reached an agreement on letting Terra become my concubine." "You want Terra of the Pyros family to become a concubine?" Avaricia let out an incredulous laugh. Then she sternly shouted at Orizio, "Terra is a pure blood member of the royal family." At that moment, Sol raised a hand and pressed it on Avaricia's shoulder, signaling her not to continue. Then he patiently asked Orizio what exactly was going on. Orizio said lightly, "I only gave them what they wanted." Sol spoke up to remind him, enough. But Orizio ignored it and continued. In order for you all to properly celebrate the birth of a pure blood, it would be better if I, a demigod, left. After saying that, Orizio ignored Sultus's attempt to stop him and turned to walk outside. Then he suddenly stopped, turned back and said to the queen, "Tara does not have much time left. After all, patience has never been my strong suit." After learning of this matter, Tara went to Luciana's residence, filled with resentment. Looking at the corridor not far away, full of people coming and going, Tara unconsciously lifted her proud chin once more. They must already be gossiping after seeing with their own eyes that a little fairy had triumphed over me, a royal divine maiden. Thinking of how her father had actually agreed to let her become a concubine, Tara's expression instantly darkened. She walked toward the noisy crowd ahead. "What are you all gathered here for? Shouldn't you be out fully enjoying the festival?" The air instantly fell silent, and several royal women turned around in surprise. The one who had come was none other than Tara, dressed in glittering splendor. Seeing this, one of the royal women said, "Lady Tara, why have you come?" "Of course I have come to see that foolish stone fairy." Tara elegantly brushed back her hair. "I've been waiting for her to come pay her respects to me, but she has never come. I am going to make her pay for her rudeness. After all, I represent the ladies of Bovias." Hearing this, the royal women echoed her somewhat guiltily. Looking at the royal women before her, who were obviously a bit flustered, Tara vaguely sensed that something was wrong. Suddenly, her eyes lit up. "Isn't that a small ornament made by the great magician? This is too much. You all clearly knew I had been looking for his works all along." One royal woman answered with an embarrassed expression, "I'm sorry to say this, but this was not made by the great magician." At this, Tara frowned. Angrily, she shouted loudly, "Are you saying that I was mistaken?" But this was made by her. The royal woman who had been shouted at hurriedly tried to explain, but before she could finish, she was interrupted by a cry of surprise from not far away. How amazing! How can her little hands make something so complicated? Not only that, she also has excellent taste. No wonder His Highness chose her as his first wife. All of a sudden, the expressions of the two royal women changed at the same time. Then Tara's furious voice slowly rang out. "Where did you two come from? You really remind me of fence-sitters who sway both ways."
Ah.
"Lady Tara, this is all a misunderstanding." Before she could finish speaking, Tara viciously shoved that black-haired royal woman. Then she spoke in an icy tone. "I hope that in front of the queen, you can say these words too. I am going to give this ungrateful wretch a lesson she will never forget." In front of Luciana's door, royal women had gathered in a lively crowd. Nicole shouted at the top of her voice, "Now, who's next?" A royal woman immediately jumped out excitedly. "I've been waiting for so long. Please give us a little more time." Nicole wiped the non-existent sweat from her forehead and nodded. "This won't be over anytime soon." She then turned and came to Luciana, who was buried in her work, and asked anxiously, "What should we do?" The line had not gotten any shorter at all. Nicole recalled the dozens of pieces of jewelry Luciana had already handed out as if she were giving away cabbages, and could not help looking troubled. Luciana suddenly cried out, and Nicole responded instinctively. But Luciana, her cheeks flushed red, smiled especially brightly and continued, "I feel very fulfilled." Hearing that, Nicole was shocked. At a time like this, how can you still be so happy? Why did you agree to make little accessories for everyone? You should have been dressed in the most splendid clothes, receiving the admiration of the other ladies. But now Luciana's hair was already soaked with sweat, and her clothes were covered with sparks splashed from forging. At this moment, no one would take her for a fairy anymore. Thinking of this, Nicole sighed helplessly. "If His Highness finds out, he might cut off my head." Suddenly, a servant's voice came from the doorway. "His Highness Sol requests everyone to go celebrate the birth of the first imperial grandson." Hearing that, Nicole immediately brightened up. "We can finally catch our breath." Luciana merely stared blankly at Nicole and softly answered, "Oh, what do you mean?" "Oh, we don't have much time." Nicole hurriedly pushed Luciana by the back into the washroom. The servant's voice came again. "A guest wishes to see you." Hearing this, Nicole could not help complaining. What terrible timing. Tara's cold voice rang out, still as rude as ever. Tara, accompanied by a group of maids, had already walked up to Luciana. Nicole immediately panicked. "My apologies, but Lady Luciana is not yet ready to receive guests." Tara ignored Nicole and simply stared expressionlessly at Luciana. "I know you've been using your little tricks to charm the ladies of Bovias. What? You still haven't prepared yourself to receive me." Hearing Tara's displeased words, the maid standing behind her suddenly shoved Nicole hard. Nicole fell heavily to the ground, and Luciana cried out in fright. Then she looked straight at Tara. Tara smiled smugly. "Your maid should properly learn some manners. So should you." Hearing that, Luciana fixed Tara with an unwavering stare. Seeing this, Tara completely lost her reason. "You must think you're special because you warm His Highness's bed. How dare a little fairy like you look me in the eye?" At those words, Luciana clenched her fists tightly. Summoning her courage, she fired back, His Highness told me that eyes are meant to meet. *Tara had intended to teach Lixiana a proper lesson, but she had not expected this human girl to gather the courage to fight back.
What?
You dare mock a goddess like me? I think it's quite the opposite, Lixiana said with an innocent face. Hearing that, Tara gritted her teeth in rage, and the girl's faint resistance instantly made her completely lose control. You tiny little fairy. How dare you be so insolent? As she spoke, she raised that golden glowing hand, preparing to slap Lixiana hard across the face. Nicole darted in front of Lixiana, and then came a sharp smack as a solid slap landed on Nicole's face. Nicole's body immediately staggered, and Lixiana worriedly supported her. She angrily questioned Tara. What exactly are you trying to do? Tara merely crossed her arms, looking completely justified. The one at fault is this little fairy. She dared obstruct me, a royal. The punishment she should face is death. Besides, serving someone like you is itself a sin. At those words, Lixiana could finally no longer suppress the anger in her heart. She interrupted, that's enough. Then she stepped in front of Nicole again and loudly demanded of Tara, then why don't you hit me? Tara was completely stunned by Lixiana's reaction, but Lixiana strode up to Tara and calmly said, if that will make you feel better, then go ahead and hit me. But remember what I'm about to say. If His Highness Orizio asks me what happened, I will tell him that I want to see your hand served on a plate. The air around Tara instantly turned cold, and she roared at Lixiana. Are you threatening me? Supporting the trembling Nicole, Lixiana spoke firmly. I want you to apologize to Nicole. As long as you apologize, I'll act as if this never happened. Hearing this, Tara's expression turned even colder, and she said in a trembling voice. Seeing this, Nicole looked full of worry. You don't need to do this. But Lixiana still stood firmly in front of Tara and repeated, apologize to Nicole, unless you want His Highness to cut off that pretty hand of yours. Tara was so furious, she was nearly grinding her molars to pieces, and golden divine power instantly gathered in her hand. With an angry shout, she raised her hand and struck straight at Lixiana. Unexpectedly, in the next second, her wrist was firmly seized by a man's hand. At the same time, Orizio's deep, magnetic voice rang through the room. If you want Tara's hand, you should have told me directly. The moment Lixiana saw Orizio appear out of nowhere, she froze, then softly called out to him with a blushing face. Orizio merely tightened his grip on Tara's wrist. With a cold face, he said, Tara Konam, I will not give you a second chance. I don't mind, either. With that, he violently flung the woman's wrist aside. Tara fell to the ground with a thud, and a large stain of blood quickly spread across the hem of her skirt. The woman turned deathly pale with fright. Orizio turned his head and coldly glanced at Tara. It seems you drank quite a bit of linum, but evidently it was useless. This is the price for offending me and my woman. By now, Tara was already scared out of her mind, trembling uncontrollably all over. I didn't mean to. Hearing that, Orizio suddenly smiled and said in a low voice, forget that we once discussed making you my concubine. After saying that, he picked Lixiana up and turned to leave. No matter how heart-wrenchingly Tara cried, it was of no use. Inside a noisy seaside tavern, everywhere there was the chaotic chatter of drinkers. Did you see the captain of that golden ship? I heard women are all fighting for his attention. Who does she think she is? I also heard he's surrounded by beauties, and all of them are beauties from the arena. Is that true? I can't wait to see what that guy looks like. Suddenly, the man who had been smiling as he poured wine froze and stared blankly ahead. It's a god. The moment the man surrounded by golden light entered, the brilliance was so piercing that everyone could barely keep their eyes open. The mortals present almost instinctively dropped to their knees in worship. The newcomer was none other than Caligo, the Empress's son. Caligo gave a light snort. After sitting down directly, he ordered the tavern owner, bring me wine. The owner hurriedly answered, yes, right away. A harsh shout suddenly rang out. You actually dared lock me up over a few worthless coins. Just wait. Once I break out, you're finished. Do you know who I am? Hearing this, Caligo became somewhat interested and slowly asked, why did you lock that person up? The tavern owner answered with a terrified expression. Oh, he's just a passing vagrant. He had a little too much to drink and killed the woman traveling with him. Like a madman, he actually claimed to be the son of High Priest Eunuchus. At that, Caligo looked even more interested and gave the order with a smile. Bring him to me. I happen to need a bit of entertainment right now. I think he'll make a very fine plaything for me. Just thinking of what had happened a moment ago made the girl's face flush red again and again. She had been so nervous that she had not even managed to refuse at once. And she had never expected Orizio to bathe her personally, yet the man calmly said, now let's wash up. The girl was startled at once, thinking Orizio was angry and wanted to punish her. So she quickly explained, I didn't mean to argue with Lady Tara. I really don't need her hand, so please don't be angry. Orizio merely teleported to the girl's side and carefully examined Lixiana all over, confirming that she was not injured. Only then did the man let out a breath of relief and look at the girl expressionlessly. How many times do I have to repeat this? I don't like other people damaging what belongs to me, whether intentionally or by accident. As he said this, Orizio's gaze shifted slightly, his icy eyes fixed on the girl's red and swollen hands. Your hands. Lixiana instinctively shrank back a little and hurriedly explained, "I didn't hurt them. I only made a few silver ornaments." Looking at the girl anxiously trying to explain herself, Orizio let out a soft sigh. "Whatever you do, you always seem to have a reason." For the first time, he regretted his own soft-heartedness. Had he known, he never should have given the silver wire to Lixiana, but as a god, he could not go back on his promise. So he said nothing more and merely let his pained gaze sweep over the girl's injuries. Poor Lixiana was so frightened that she hardly dared breathe and could only mutter softly in a tone almost like coaxing, "Didn't you promise me I could do silver filigree work?" At this moment, Orizio was holding the girl's hand. He gently wiped the injured places, and after hearing Lixiana's words, he said, "I never said you could hurt your own hands." Only then did the girl belatedly realize the man's concern, and her little face instantly flushed red. "Why are you so good to me?" "Because you are mine." Orizio looked completely serious. He lowered his head toward the girl and gently kissed the back of her hand, as if it were a treasure. "So remember what I say. No matter who dares lay a hand on you, I will make them lose their life." Lixiana stared blankly at the glowing man before her and was almost completely swept away when unexpectedly the man's deep, magnetic voice sounded again. "This isn't over yet. Nicole and Gino's lives depend on whether you can successfully disguise yourself as a fairy." Hearing this, Lixiana instantly came back to her senses. The man was clearly using tricks again, and before she could spit out the word shameless, Orizio shifted the topic with a childish threat. "And whether you can stay alive also depends on me. So now, shall we start bathing?" Lixiana completely froze, staring stiffly at the man before her who smiled like a child, and he even picked up the sponge himself. The girl was so startled that she screamed, "I can wash myself." But Orizio acted as though he hadn't heard her and simply began washing Lixiana himself. Very soon, the ambiguous sound of water began echoing continuously through the bathroom. Outside the bathroom, Nicole was sitting on the sofa, quietly sobbing. "Lady Lixiana saved me. Originally, even if I had died at Lady Terra's hands, no one would have cared. But Lady Lixiana ordered Lady Terra, a royal herself, to apologize to me." Thinking of this, Nicole wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes. She patted her chubby cheeks and said to herself, "Pull yourself together. Your job is to make sure Lady Lixiana earns the respect of others in Bovias." So Nicole began preparing for this sudden banquet. The little fairy's mind spun rapidly. This banquet is to celebrate the birth of the first imperial grandson, which means Princess Vicaria is hosting it. So the jewelry and clothes suitable for this theme should be these. By the time Nicole confidently finished preparing everything, she discovered that the bathroom door was still tightly shut. Just how long were they going to keep bathing? Meanwhile, Orizio had already stolen the girl's breath away, and only after his desire was briefly eased did the man reluctantly leave Lixiana's red lips. Looking at the girl's flushed little face, he could not help praising her. "You are beautiful. We should get out of the bath now. The banquet is about to begin." As he spoke, he took the girl's hand and led her outside. Only then did Lixiana notice that the wounds on her hands had already healed. She froze in place at once. Orizio, who was pulling her along, turned back to glance at her and cautioned somewhat worriedly, "Be careful. When Gino isn't around, try not to get hurt again." Before she could say anything in reply, Orizio revealed a devilish smile. "After the celebration is over, I'm very much looking forward to the night in Tesca." Only then did the girl understand what he meant, and her cheeks instantly burned red. "This is bad. This is bad." Lixiana's human identity has been discovered by the vicious Empress, and after learning that Terra masqueraded in front of the Sun Prince, the Empress finally lost her former composure and elegance. She raised her hand and viciously slapped Terra across the face. Terra fell to the ground at once. The Empress furiously cursed, "You idiot. How dare you bleed in front of Orizio? All that linen was wasted. You have no value anymore." At this moment, Terra was still immersed in the pain of losing her child. Crying, she shouted at the Empress, "But I lost my child." At that, the Empress grew even angrier and grabbed Terra by the hair. "Who would care about a bastard? Did you really think you could deceive Orizio, the god of judgment?" Then she turned and instructed the maid beside her, "Throw this piece of trash into Satyros's cave." Hearing that, Terra instantly broke down in tears and hurriedly begged, "Aunt Avaricia," but the Empress remained unmoved. At the critical moment between life and death, a sudden thought flashed through Terra's mind. "I saw blood. That fairy beside Orizio. I saw blood on her hand. It was human blood." Hearing Terra's absurd words, Empress Avaricia's brow furrowed even more deeply. She bent down and reached out to lift Terra's chin. "Have you truly gone mad?" "No, I swear it. I saw it with my own eyes." There was a wound on her hand, and what flowed out was dark red blood. "They say she is a fairy, but her blood is neither green nor does it glow. If what you said is true." The corner of Avaricia's mouth suddenly curled upward. "Then things will become very interesting." Seeing this, Terra cried and begged, "Please show mercy." The Empress ignored her and merely turned to the maidservant and said coldly, "Lock her in this villa first." Very soon, Empress Avaricia walked out of the villa and returned to her own bedchamber. All along the way, she was thinking, If what ②Her said was true, then I must seize this opportunity and brand Orizio a traitor. This was also the best chance to completely shatter the balance of the heavenly palace. Avarisha raised a hand to cover her face and could not help laughing. He was nothing but a foolish human-blooded idiot. Nothing but a foolish human-blooded idiot. And yet for the sake of a human girl, he had rejected a royal goddess. He was exactly like his father soul back then. Amid the interweaving light and shadow, Lixiana's beautiful face appeared in her mind. Avarisha's gaze instantly sharpened, as if she were smiling, yet also as if she were crying. Then she shouted to the maidservant, "Go inform Simulo. We must find out whether that fellow is really a human girl." Soon, the royal wizard Simulo appeared. At first glance, he had the face of a beautiful young man, but in his eyes were traces of years long past. Avarisha raised her wineglass and said unhurriedly, "I heard that Orizio's first night partner was a human woman." At these words, Simulo was immediately startled. "Your Majesty, what do you mean by that? You should know that His Majesty the King has already acknowledged her as a fairy." Avarisha spoke blandly. She made a silver ornament for him. From the very beginning, they had planned to fool us. But, Simulo, humans can make silver ornaments too, can't they? Simulo subconsciously swallowed and then said, "But if she truly is human, His Majesty would discover it immediately."
Exactly.
Only Sol and Orizio know the truth. At this point, the outwardly calm Avarisha unconsciously clenched her fists. She recalled the human woman who had first set foot in Bovias 200 years ago, possessing the same jet black hair and eyes as Orizio. A trace of killing intent instantly rose in her eyes, and she said hatefully, "Simply sending Orizio to Tesca is far from enough. We must wait for the right moment, until Caligo returns to Bovias and ascends the throne." Hearing this, Simulo desperately suppressed the panic in his heart and forced himself to speak calmly. "Prince Orizio has already stained his hands with blood because of you. As you wished, his radiance has already completely dimmed, and as the god of judgment, he can never become the ruler of Bovias. This is a fact known by every member of the royal family, including His Majesty Sol. That is what you do not know." Avarisha gritted her teeth and said, "That human woman is His Majesty's weakness. He may well pity Orizio, that demigod with partial human blood. Are you still worried about that ancient prophecy? The Sun Prince will meet a human girl unafraid of flames, and together they will give birth to an omnipotent god." Simulo said in a trembling voice, "Is that what you mean?" Avarisha suddenly became agitated. "Don't be ridiculous. All humans burn to death in fire, so why should the ravings of an old prophet be carved onto a stone tablet?" Seeing this, Simulo bowed and said softly, "But it was precisely because of that prophecy that we burned that troublesome human woman to death. And because of it, we also successfully placed a curse on Prince Orizio." As Simulo spoke, he took out a box of calming pills and handed it to the Empress. "This will help you calm down." "Yes, but this prophecy was meaningless from the very beginning." Avarisha picked up one of the calming pills. Without even drinking water, she swallowed it in one gulp and said almost as if speaking to herself, "Still, I did use it against Orizio's mother, Mortar. But whenever I think of her, I still become restless and upset." Back then, Sol's union with Mortar made the wizards believe that the prophecy was coming true. So, despite the opposition of the other royals, they blocked my path to becoming Empress. At that time, Sol also favored Mortar and Orizio especially, and kept them by his side at all times. I fought with everything I had to reach the position I hold today. Orizio is precisely the proof of the humiliation I once suffered. And Sol's attitude toward Caligo has always been conflicted, because he lacks the innate power possessed by most gods. The only one who stayed with me through all of this was you, Simulo. The royal wizard was also her only confidant. This may be our only chance to lock Orizio forever in Hades' underworld. That way, our family will shine forever in Bovias." Avarisha raised her left hand, glowing with golden light, and extended it towards Simulo. Simulo gently kissed that hand. "His Highness Caligo will rule the heavenly palace." The omnipotent Sun Prince had lost the healing power that was his by birth. At this moment, he was stepping out of the bath gracefully, wearing damp trousers. He slowly spoke into the void. "It seems the human world is giving you quite a headache." As his words fell, a somewhat dissatisfied voice came from the void. "How can you say that?" Then it asked warily, "Is there someone else by your side?" Orizio coldly glanced at a certain sneaky little spirit. "Speak directly. What did you find?" "You said the High Priest, Eunuchus, is Lady Lixiana's father. By the way, Your Highness, shouldn't you be properly enjoying the festival right now?" Orizio gave a bitter smile. "That is not important. What matters is..." As he spoke, he slowly raised his glowing hands. "My healing power is about to disappear." "What did you say?" Gino simply could not believe it was true. "You are only 200 years old. How could your healing power possibly disappear? For a god, losing healing power was equivalent to a death sentence. But, Your Highness, you are immortal, which means you have lost your qualification to be the son of the sun." The irony of it was too great. At this thought, Gino could not help clenching his fists. He shouted angrily at Orizio, Didn't I already urge you long ago to stop killing? It is precisely because of the slaughter on your hands that you are losing your precious healing power. What do you plan to do now? Before Gino could finish speaking, Orizio coldly raised his hand and dispersed Gino's phantom. The angry muttering of a certain spirit thus dissipated into the air. Gino, still in the human world, raised his head and looked at the sky, so angry that he stamped his feet. Did you cut off the connection just because you did not want to hear me nag? After venting, he quickly calmed down and secretly swore, I must make sure that Prince Orizio's hands are stained with killing no more, then I must go beg His Majesty's soul. As Gino walked and pondered, before long, he arrived in front of the temple, and just as he was about to enter, he was stopped. What are you doing at the Sun Temple? Two goddesses who were fetching water asked in confusion. Gino did not answer, but instead asked, where is High Priest Eunuchus? A procession whose grandeur nearly rivaled that of a king's outing slowly approached. With a whoosh, Gino flashed to the front of the procession. The accompanying guards all raised their weapons. They sternly shouted, who are you? Show your identification. Gino, however, looked completely calm and said coldly, you actually dare create bloodshed before the Sun Temple. You will be severely punished for your killing. High Priest Eunuchus, you think so too, don't you? Gino's voice carried steadily into the ears of Eunuchus inside the carriage. What is going on? The attendants hurriedly begged forgiveness. High Priest, we will drive away that crazy old man at once. Hearing this, Gino yanked off his cloak hood and said angrily, you want to drive me away? Eunuchus, get down here. It is too tiring to look up at you like this. An attendant at the side stepped forward and rebuked him. What nerve you have. Do you know who stands before you? Gino shrugged. Of course I know. I am standing before the sun god. Seeing Eunuchus in the carriage wave his hand, Gino thought the other party had already recognized his identity, because any high priest with spiritual power could recognize the mark of the sun god on him. So he swaggered forward and said smugly, I knew it. A high priest like you would definitely be able to tell. The next second, a sharp blade stabbed straight into his body. Soon after, it was viciously pulled back out by the attendant. Gino spat out a mouthful of blood and weakly declared, do you know who I am? After saying that, he collapsed to the ground with a thud and lost consciousness. Meanwhile, Orizio, sitting in the darkness, suddenly sensed something. You had better not die before completing the mission. How long does it take just to punish a few insignificant mortals? The man used divine power to tear open a crack in the void. You have grown old. After saying that, he disappeared into the darkness. Nicole looked at the unmoving girl in front of her and called out, you have been staring at the wall for a long time. Luciana still seemed somewhat absent-minded. I was just thinking about some things. As she spoke, she looked at the wound on her hand and asked Nicole, do all members of the royal family have the power to heal others? They are all gods. Even a little fairy like me has healing power. They say the purer the bloodline, the stronger the power. Don't tell me you are worried about Lady Tara. From what I know of her, before she even stepped into the room, she should already have been healed. His Highness was not trying to end her life. Hearing this, Luciana was instantly startled. What does that mean? Nicole blinked uneasily and said in a low voice, didn't you know? The only person who can end the life of a royal family member is Prince Orizio. If their lives are ended by Prince Orizio, then they truly die, even if they are members of the royal family. Hearing this, Luciana became even more confused instead. If Prince Orizio is so powerful, then why does he still need Gino's healing power? Thinking carefully, I actually know nothing about His Highness. So she said guiltily, I think I have brought trouble to everyone. I pretended to be a fairy and ruined the relationship between His Highness and Lady Tara. I do not know what to do. What if, because of me, everyone is placed in danger? Nicole looked at Luciana like this with heartache. She stepped forward and took the girl's hand. With complete sincerity on her face, she comforted her. Don't worry, I think you have already saved me once. I also believe that Lord Gino will definitely be fine, and His Highness will definitely be fine too.